Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I have a Butler Beagle in the studio, so I may be a little bit slower today. When the Butler Beagles are allowed outside of Indiana, they simply drop in on friends and come to their studio. So Schroeder's around today. If I'm a little off my game, that's why. Let me do the rundown, because I'm still in a great mood. Youngkin's Virginia win offers midterm roadmap for GOP, warning for Democrats, opines the headline of the Wall Street Journal this morning. Voters punish Democrats and lift amid left drift, according to Axios. A couple of great quotes in the story this morning. Clearly, the president's drop in favorability made it very difficult for the Democratic nominee to stay above water. Democratic Jerry Connolly told Axios DC in McAuliffe's election night event in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. You think that's what happened? A senior aide to New Jersey Democrat told Axios' Alanya Trini, quote, "It's insanely clear. The party must reorient not on center-left or progressive goals, but on what gets real things done for families." You would think so. How bad was it? The New York Times has a headline story about a little tiny district in San Antonio. John Lujan, a 59-year-old retired firefighter, won the seat, a blow for Democrats, because Joe double-digit points only a year ago. My favorite headline of the morning in the New York Times from Jeremy Peters and Lisa Lerler: Republicans pounce on schools as a wedge issue to unite the party. As I put online, headlines are not the fault of Jeremy. He's a fine reporter. I don't know Lisa. Headlines are driven to get clicks. Republicans haven't pounced on anything. Republicans have been talking about schools in red and purple states for decades. Virginia's a blue state. And so the education issue has erupted in Virginia, proving that blue states can be turned red when parents see the indoctrination of their children going on. New York Democrats assess losses to Republicans, according to the New York Times. Quote, "This was a shellacking. Up and down the Empire State, Republicans won election at the local level. Reeling from surprise losses, Democrats sound the alarm for 2022, according to Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns, the two Bigfoot Democratic reporters. Reporters on Democrats. I think they're leftists. I think they're both Democrats, but they're not. They're just reporters. So let me say that. Reeling from surprise losses, Democrats sound the alarm for 22, say reporters Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns at the New York Times. Democrats stung by loss. Now get the note. Now I'm going to make a transition to a different set of stories. New York Times again. Democrats stung by losses press forward on Biden agenda. The Washington Post. After loss in Virginia, Democrats look to speed up their stalled $3 trillion spending agenda. So what two of those stories don't belong in everything I've told you about? I've run through a dozen stories. The two stories that say Nancy Pelosi marched right out there and said, we're going to double down on speed and size, we're going to add parental leave back in, and we're sending a bill to the Senate. Everything that went wrong in Virginia is because we didn't spend enough money. Can you believe it? That's what she's concluded. That's what Chuck Schumer concluded. We didn't go far enough to the left. So we're going to go left, left, left. So just remember, it's November the 4th, 2021. A massive shellacking has been delivered to Democrats across the country, and their instant reaction is to double and triple down on their left-leaning, wacky, progressive effort. And I must tell you, this is the kind of thing that makes people look up and believe the Democrats really don't have an agenda. All they really have is a plan for your life. They don't have an agenda to persuade you on. They have a plan for your life. A few other headlines. Glenn Youngkin, by the way, the governor-elect of Virginia, will be joining me at the bottom of the hour. I hope you will be here for that. Fed dials back bond purchases. Plans to end stimulus by June. Uh-oh. Millions of mortgage holders brace for Bank of England to raise interest rates. Uh-oh. That means, let's go check the markets. I'm going to do this early today, brought to you by Birch Gold. Birch Gold is a great sponsor of the program. Head to hughgold.com, hughgold.com. I want to go and see what happened to gold yesterday. Yep, 1775, up 0.66%. You see, when the Fed starts tapering and stops inflating the currency and printing money, that means interest rates are going to rise. And they're going to rise rather rapidly in England, and they're going to rise a little bit more slowly here. The 10-year Treasury's at 1.579. everything's going to get more expensive. By this time next year, the inflation that is below is about 5-7% is going to be in double digits. The houses are going to be out of reach, and gold, look, I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but it's not going to be around $17.75 an ounce. Yesterday's market was another big one. The Dow up 104, the NASDAQ up 161. So what does Birch Gold have to do with that? We're on to an inflationary sprint and then a deflationary headache that will be extraordinary. A stagflation, 2022 wipeout for the Democrats because they're not going to stop spending money. It's all they know how to do. In other news, so that's my Birch Gold news for you. Get out there and take care of business now and get the gold that you need, or roll over a portion of your IRA into a Birch Gold 401k operated and maintained, or IRA. They house the gold, they take care of it. You can just buy gold for them for your safety deposit box. Inflation is interest rates is coming. Other news. The Supreme Court heard arguments on scrapping New York State's concealed weapons permit law. My friend, retired federal judge Mike Luttig, a conservative, counseled against the court striking it down in a New York Times op-ed a couple days ago, which I've read a few times. The Second Amendment is not my specialty. I'm not a gun guy. I do know it's an individual right, and it was so declared by the Supreme Court in Heller and subsequently applied to the states through incorporation. But we don't know what standard, whether it's rational basis, meaning whatever they pass is fine, intermediate scrutiny, which means they've got to have a compelling reason for doing it, or strict scrutiny, meaning that all gun laws are down. I think they're going to settle on intermediate scrutiny, and I believe they're going to strike down this law, but indicate that reasonable concealed carry weapon law will meet strict scrutiny. But I don't know, and it's not my area of specialty. I get Harsanyi on or someone like that. COVID updates. This is really going to encourage you. Biden urges vaccinations for millions of newly eligible children. Can you think of a worse person, a worse spokesperson for getting children vaccinated than the President of the United States, who falls asleep at the COP 23, whatever it is? Really? This is an honest question. Can you think of someone less persuasive to put in front of the nation to urge them to get their children 5 to 11 vaccinated? Now, I personally believe every child between 5 and 11 should get vaccinated, unless they've already had the virus. I don't know what to tell you there. That's the one question I've asked. I've invited Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins on the show. They won't come on because I'm not an easy interview and I won't blow smoke at them. And the one question that Americans want to know is, my kid had COVID. When did they get the vaccine? Have you seen a clean answer to that anywhere? No, of course not. That would require the government to communicate. Some parents rush to get COVID-19 vaccines for young kids, writes the Wall Street Journal. Of course you would. If they haven't had COVID, you would go and do that. Young children, according to the New York Times, are lining up for the next wave of COVID shots. That makes a lot of sense. Once they get them, I think they can take their masks off and be very, very happy with the world. Cheers, tears, comfort dogs, and Disney balloons. COVID shots for children get underway in a Texas hospital. Spare me. Every child ever has shed a tear at the little punch. There's nothing to worry about. President Biden also popped up yesterday to say that families separated at the border won't receive $450,000. He also said it to the Wall Street Journal. Biden says payments to family separated at the Mexico border are not going to happen. He's actually not in a position to say that directly. Those payments are contemplated as a result of discussions between the Department of Justice and the ACLU. It's a proposal that the United States government put on the table so he can call up Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland can tell the Department of Justice lawyers, take that off the table. We're going to court, but he's got to ask. This is the most interesting story of the day, by far. Marines will overhaul recruiting retention and shift away from a young, replaceable force, the commandant said. The Marine Corps released a new plan Wednesday that says it must overhaul how it recruits and retain Marines, suggesting for the first time in decades that threats posed by China and other adversaries require personnel changes and could require some shrinking of the service to accommodate a new emphasis on keeping trained personnel. That's like heresy among Marines. General David Berger, Commandant of the Marine Corps, said that he sees no alternative but to pivot away from the system that through multiple wars has prioritized massing a young, physically tough, replaceable force that was not all that highly skilled. For the past 35 years, Berger said the services had turned over about 75% of its force each year, rotating annually among thousands of young enlisted Marines who joined for 4 years while other services retain a higher percentage. We are an anomaly. We brag about it, and I think it's worked for us. It will not work for us going forward, I don't think. The Marines are going to go for long-time tenured people. That's interesting. I got to talk to some Marines about that. Not sure what they're going to think. I got to call Botkin, my financial advisor up in Sacramento, and find out what he thinks about that. Marines generally, it's in the Washington Post. I'll be right back here when we come back. America, stay tuned. I am Hugh Hewitt on the Hugh Hewitt.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. 30 years have passed since Justice Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. His tenure there has been consequential indeed. He's the court's foremost proponent of natural law, an understanding that our individual rights are transcendent and come from God. This understanding undergirds his approach to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, powerfully informing the justice's unyielding commitment to limited government and equal justice before the law. Over the last 5 years, Justice Thomas has authored more opinions than any of his colleagues on the Supreme Court. His influence only continues to grow, and he's beloved by the scores of people who know him. He knows the names of the children of the marshals who guard the courthouse. He's mentored generations of clerks, treating them like family, and his distinctive, hearty laugh rings out within his judicial chambers. May God bless this great, good, and brilliant man, and may he serve on the court many years longer.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Not translate into the ability to spread it. And that's an inference. What we know about the empirical studies looking at infected children versus infected adults and spread within their families, within their home dwelling units, is that children are very, very infrequently the cause of spread to other family members. It's almost always the adults spread to children, not the other way around. So we know from empirical studies that children don't spread the infection. And that being the case, there's little rationale for putting, masking children where we don't know that the mask has appreciable benefit, on top of the fact that the children don't really spread the infection very much.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
And by the way, have you contracted the coronavirus? Have you had it?
I have. I had it about a year ago.
Well, did you make the argument that the immunity is stronger than the vaccine?
Not in my religious exemptions interview, I did not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that argument's essentially removed. It's not on the table. We right. tried to negotiate that at the beginning with our association, and it just was an argument the city was having because they were saying we're tied to the mandate, and the mandate doesn't allow for that.
Amazing. I played the other day an undercover video by an organization called Project Veritas, and they recorded 3 scientists with Pfizer, all admitting that contracting the coronavirus and surviving it gives you stronger immunity than the vaccine. All admitting it. And a couple of them admitted that they can't say it publicly. They signed non-disclosure agreements. And if they ever said anything about this, they'd be in real deep trouble.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy.
This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Putting the pedal down inside the Beltway. I'm Hugh Hewitt, live America. Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin joining me after the break. I hope you'll join me. If you have a question for Governor Youngkin, simply tweet at me. Use @Hugh Hewitt on Twitter and tell me what you'd like me to ask the governor, and I will consider doing so. Let me go to my friend Yamiche Alcindor in the White House yesterday, asking President Biden at a press conference an astonishing question, actually. Cut number 9.
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't have an effective way to push back on that?
Well, I think that the whole answer is just to speak the truth, lay out where we are. Look, I'm convinced that if you look at everything from my view on criminal justice system to my view on equal opportunity, to my view on economic
stop right
issues.
there. It's Yamiche I'm interested in. Also, let's play cut number 8.
What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
Well,
okay, so I want you to, in question number 1, she said Republicans are lying about critical race theory. In question number 2, false claims about critical race theory. Yamiche is wrong. I don't know that she knows that she's wrong. I believe that inside the D.C. bubble, they have no idea what has happened at Thomas Jefferson High School, what has happened at Loudoun County, what has happened in Virginia Beach, what has happened at school training all over Virginia. They actually don't know. And they think it's all made up. It's not made up, and parents know it's not made up, but it is in the water of the press corps, and they do not allow serious Republicans on television to talk about CRT. And most obviously on MSNBC on Tuesday night, a much remarked upon meltdown between Joy Reid and who runs inside Nicole Wallace and Rachel Maddow led to much mockery online. The Free Beacon put together the Oh My God reel of all the networks on Tuesday night, cut number 12.
Oh, you know what that music means. It means it's election night in America.
He is in the running tonight to become the next governor of Virginia as well. An upbeat speech and a weird little dance.
He's found a way to launder a pretty racist trope, this idea that we cannot talk about America's history because it hurts my feelings. He's turned that into a campaign. Is the problem that part of the Obama coalition, unfortunately, there are a lot of Americans who don't want to deal with the history. They don't want to deal with it.
Even though it's not actually taught anywhere, even though it's not a real thing.
7:30 in the morning this past Saturday, Jake. And it was for a Youngkin event, and it was packed. The streets were were overflowing with people.
I'm going to be a little transparent here. We've had a few McAuliffe surrogates that we expected to be on our air that suddenly are not available.
I think that the Democrats are coming across in ways that we don't recognize, that are annoying and offensive and seem out of touch.
This is your live vote right now. Where are there counties where McAuliffe is underperforming Northam by more than 10 points?
Oh, my God. Is somebody high up in McAuliffe's camp who was there with McAuliffe put it this way to me about an hour ago. It's a bloodbath.
Generally speaking, if I'm President Biden, I'm not feeling good tonight.
It's over.
That's from the Free Beacon, and I love that. I love that so much because it captures everything, but boy, it doesn't even capture the charges of racism that permeate the left in the bubble, in the deep blue bubble, which is very, very thick. They don't understand. ReliefFactor.com is something I understand. I take it every single morning, and I want you to take it. I'm doing it early today so I can spend more time with the governor-elect of Virginia next segment. I carry an curcumin resveratrol and omega every single morning right there. I won't give any to Schroeder. If they airdropped it over at the Butler Beagles, their basketball team could actually make a basket or two afterwards. ReliefFactor.com keeps you moving. back and forth downtown, all and around the town. Yesterday, I'm going to the Versace Memorial today in Alexandria. Got to walk up there after the show and look forward to seeing it with people who have maintained it for years. Medal of Honor recipient. Don't do anything. Come right back, except go to relieffactor.com, and then come right back here. Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin joins me next.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Birch Gold Group.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Ilhan Omar is back at it again. You know, she's been kind of quiet lately. She told her constituents Saturday at a town hall meeting that the rise in gun violence in Minneapolis and the increase in carjackings is due to the police. They have chosen, she said, not to fulfill their oath of office and provide the public safety they owe to the citizens. Now, this is rich coming from her. She goes from wanting to defund the police to blaming the police for not being responsive enough as people are getting murdered and their cars getting jacked in Minneapolis. That's the left. That's today's Democrat Party. It is an extraordinary thing to witness. They're anti-police. They're against parent involvement in their kids' curriculum. They want to gouge us with more and more taxes. They want to force you to comply. They'll cancel you if you don't comply, ask Dave Chappelle. And evidently, they're okay with strapping little defenseless beagle puppies into cages where their little faces are eaten off by giant sandflies. Let me tell me some more about the Tony Fauci dolls. I want to hear some more about people wearing their Tony Fauci shirts. How long does this guy get to stay in power?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way. But I think more profoundly, I think that Zuckerberg, what we're learning is that he put $420 million to buy up local boards of elections. He did it in an extremely partisan way. And I think it basically rigged the election. I mean, all of us are sort of scratching our heads wondering what really went on in 2020. And I think a big piece of the puzzle is understanding that it was not the people's representatives that were counting ballots, that were canvassing elections. It was partisan hacks that were installed by one of the most powerful people in our country.
So, have we seen enough of a response to that, a requisite pushback in the last 10 months? Are we going to see it just happen next year? Will it be $1 billion, JD?
You know, I don't think there will be $1 billion, but look, this is where humans have the ability to push back against this stuff, right? You know, we need to be men of action in this moment, and Americans need to say, look, no more of this. We need to actually ban Zuckerberg money coming in and buying up Democratic votes in our elections, or we're never going to have a free and fair election in this country ever again. People are woken up to it, so I think there's going to be a little bit more hesitancy from people like Zuckerberg to go in and buy the election. But when they try to do it, and they will, Seb, we need to be ready to push back. We need to be filing lawsuits. We need to be, getting up and protesting. We need to be aware of what's going on. And I think I'm optimistic because we are at least aware of what happened now.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
¿Cuánto queda?
No queda nada. Que lo siento mucho.
That's the only time you can come to Christ, when the Spirit of God calls you to the cross. Don't you hesitate.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Madre, padre, ¿quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway. So pleased to welcome the governor-elect of Virginia. Good morning to you, and great to have you with us, Governor-elect Youngkin. I have not had a chance to say that yet. I wanted to make sure I said it right. Good morning.
Good morning, Hugh. Thank you for having me, and it's just been great to be with you through this whole campaign, but it's especially great to be with you this morning, so thanks for having me.
I hope you got some sleep. I've got a number of questions. None of them are trick questions. I just sort of want to get your thoughts as they exist right now. Have you named a transition director yet, Governor-elect Youngkin?
Yeah, we have. Long-time campaign Chief Operating Officer Jeff Getman. We're working on transition. We were in the office yesterday working on it, so we got started on, within a few hours of having that great crowd with us at our announcement, and we're already moving. And there's a lot to do, Hugh. We've got to get ready, and we have a big agenda for day one, and so we're getting to work.
Now, I don't expect answers until you take office. I kind of hope you do the FDR thing, which is to stay away from the mess in Richmond until you actually have the authority to fix it. But you'll be doing planning, et cetera. Will you read through, or have someone like the former Attorney General now in private practice, Richard Cullen, read through the state constitution, the code, and really tell you what your powers and authorities are as governor?
Yeah, we of course we've been through that a bit over the course of the last 10 months, and we're really looking forward to working with our majority in the House of Delegates, which there's still some races that I think have a little bit of counting to do, but sure looks like we've got a good majority in the House of Delegates. That was awesome, and we had victory declared there, and I think we're going to have a really constructive path forward. I spoke to a lot of leaders from the Democrat leadership yesterday in both the Senate and the current leadership in the House of Delegates, and we're just going to have a constructive path forward. I mean, the kitchen table issues that were at the heart of this election process of low taxes and education, of course, and better jobs and safe communities, these are issues that everybody can rally around. And so we're going to pull together, I think, a very strong agenda, which everybody has heard about over this campaign, and get moving on day one.
Has Mrs. Youngkin given any thought to what she wants to get done as First Lady of Virginia? I'm curious if she has a transition in mind.
She does, and she was starting to work on that yesterday, too, as she was down in the transition office with us. And I think she's got a lot of things that really mean a lot to her. One of the things she and I both are quite passionate about is really taking on human trafficking. And it's been an issue. It was our very first policy issue that we laid out in this campaign. And but I think there's a lot of really important issues that she's going to focus on. We've got a meeting today with the current governor, Northam, and his wife. And I'm looking forward to that because he's really committed to help us transition in a very seamless way. And so this is getting started, and time to go to work, and I'm really looking forward to it, Hugh. It's going to be an exciting 4 years.
Now, Governor-elect Youngkin, do your kids have to change schools? I always wonder about the very human element of this sort of stuff. Are they old enough that they don't have to, or do you have to do that?
No, we have our fourth child, who's our third son, Thomas, in high school, but he's a junior, and so we're of course gonna let him finish where he is, and he's excited about that. And our other two are in college, and then of course our oldest one, Grant's graduated and is doing life. So we're in great shape from a kid standpoint. It'll require us to move back and forth a bit, but we already started to think about how that's all going to work, and we're just going to ask for God's grace to help us get it all done.
Are you going to do a Carlisle Group talent dip? I mean, you know a lot of the smartest people in the United States. They work for Carlisle. Are you going to go in there and grab a few people and bring them down to Richmond?
Well, I don't know exactly where they're going to come from, but I will tell you this: we're going to have the very best people. And one of the things that I'm excited about is just the amazing talent that has already reached out and said we're excited about being part of this next administration in Virginia and focusing on things that are really going to make a difference in Virginia's future and Virginians' lives. And so I think we're going to have an enormous well of talent to choose from. It's already started to show up, and that's really exciting.
You know, the superintendent of schools, James Lane, has been there since June 1 of 2018. Do you get to name a new superintendent?
I do, and I've committed that by early December I'll name a new Secretary of Education and a new superintendent, and we're already starting that process to find the very best people to do that. And we've got a big agenda in education. I think one of the things that was clear in this campaign is that education is at the forefront of voters' minds, and it wasn't a Republican versus Democrat issue. It was a universally uniting issue for parents. And so, we've got a big charter school initiative to put forth. We want to make sure our curriculum is really at a very high standard. We're going to raise expectations in our schools. We're going to have a record budget for our Department of Education to put to work to raise teacher salaries. And so we've got to have just a world-class all-star team, and we're already starting that process trying to find those folks.
When Bill Lee went in Tennessee, he asked Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, to sit down with him on charter schools, and they did, and they got a good program. I am curious if you'll go outside of the box. Now, I haven't talked to Arthur about this, but I threw it out on Twitter. I hope Glenn Youngkin picks Arthur Brooks, who's now a professor at Harvard Business School and the Kennedy School of Government, formerly ran AEI, asks him to come and serve as his Secretary of Education. Will you go outside of the box as opposed to getting an educrat? And God bless educrats, but they're not really innovation-driven, Glenn Youngkin.
Well, Hugh, I'm an outsider in this. I came in with a very fresh perspective, and we're going to do things that are going to make a difference. And I expect to have an extremely talented cabinet around me. And yeah, we're going to be outside the box in a lot of these choices. And that gives we have time to make sure we're assessing all of the talent that's available. But yeah, we're not going to do things the way that they have been done, and that's I think that's one of the great privileges of stepping in as an outsider is you get to think outside the box.
Now, I've got to play for you very quickly, Governor, two quotes by my friend, and she is my friend, Yamiche Alcindor, at the Biden press conference yesterday. I just want her question so you get how your election is being framed in the national media. Cut number 8, the beginning, Ben, please. Can you play that for the governor?
What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
Okay, stop right there, then play cut number 9, her follow-up.
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't have an effective way.
Okay, stop right there. So false claims and lying. She's talking about you, Governor-elect. I don't believe you made any false claims. I don't believe Yamiche knows what happens at Thomas Jefferson High School in Loudoun County or throughout the state. I don't believe she's read what Christopher Rufo has discovered about what Terry McAuliffe directed his Department of Education to do on critical race studies 8 years ago. But that is Yamiche is standing in for every other member of the left-leaning, completely co-opted part of the media that blocks and tackles for Democrats. What do you say in response to that?
Well, Hugh, losing is hard. I know. Okay, and this is what you would expect. I mean, we united people around education, and it was not a divisive party issue on our side. We brought people together from all walks of the political spectrum. Democrats, Republicans, independents, and we saw support across every minority group, and it was around education for our children. I mean, children are not a divisive issue. Children are the future, and the fact is that what we expressed on our campaign was a real agenda to get politics out of the classroom and work on educating children to be ready for life, college ready or career ready, with a curriculum that actually allows them to excel and run as fast as they can. And of course, there's always children that need some extra help, and investing in our special ed program in Virginia, because kids with disabilities in Virginia have really been challenged during this time period. So ours was a very practical, comprehensive approach, and I understand that there's a lot of folks in the left liberal side of the Democratic Party that look at this and want to try to see it through a completely different lens. It's just not true. And I know losing's hard for folks, and they're going to make excuses, but at the end of the day, we're pressing forward with an agenda that's going to unite folks around a great education in Virginia. We will have the best schools again, and I just look so forward to preparing Virginia's kids for a great life.
What worries me, though, Governor-elect, is that Yamiche isn't the Democrats. She's the media, and she's PBS. We pay for Yamiche, and people like her who are presenting what you did as a lie and as a false claim. CRT, which is a subset of CT, and I've been studying CT. You didn't have to go to law school. God bless you. I did since 1978. It's racism. Their central theory is that racism and disparate racial outcomes are the result of complex, changing, and often subtle and social and institutional dynamics rather than explicit and intentional prejudice of individuals. In other words, systemic racism. And the media's embraced it, and they believe it, and it's contrary to our 14th Amendment. It's contrary to Brown v. Board. How do you fight that? If it's in the water, if everyone thinks everybody's a racist, how do you fight that?
Well, I think first, we actually appeal to the better side of ourselves. And I found myself during this campaign really drawn to those immortal words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where we are called to judge one another based on the content of our character and not the color of our skin. And I think we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep talking about it, what it means to actually focus on character and not focus on race. And let's be clear. Of course, racism exists. It always has, and it always will. We have to try to root it out when we see elements of it. But at the end of the day, we're called to love one another, and we have to try to live our lives that way. And the moment that we throw in the towel and concede that we have to all of a sudden start teaching our children to view everything through a lens of race, we've all of a sudden lost. And I just think we're better than that. I think Virginians are better than that. I think there are shared values that everyone can in fact pull together and embrace, that we're going to focus on our children's future and helping them in fact get ready and just just reject this whole concept that we have to teach everyone that race is at the base of everything we do.
Now, I know you are a Christian. You don't wear it on your sleeve, and I appreciate that. I'm a Christian. I don't wear it on my sleeve, but I'm very easy about it. Racism is a sin. We don't believe in it. We reject it. But I am amazed at the Beltway's embrace of a false narrative. Maybe Christopher Rufo may have helped lead them that way. Are you acquainted with his work from the Manhattan Institute, Governor-elect Youngkin, Chris Rufo?
I haven't, Hugh.
Okay. He has basically used... it's okay. You'll catch up with him eventually. He's the one that found the 2015 Department of Education directive. McAuliffe was governor then, telling the Virginia public schools to embrace critical race theory in order to re-engineer attitudes and belief systems. So it's in the water. Are you familiar with the Thomas Jefferson High School admissions controversy?
Of course I am, and I think one of the things that we felt strongly about is that our governor's schools in Virginia should in fact be meritocracies, and they should embrace the idea that there will be assessments and testing in order to be admitted. And on top of that, where there's groups of students that feel like they need extra support in order to get ready for that, then we should find ways to provide that extra support. But
there's a state
in all cases, we in fact have to allow our children to soar to the highest heights. And then those that need extra support, we find ways to provide it.
And by the way, I applaud your emphasis on special ed. I know so many parents who've struggled through the last 18 months, and they need a lot of help. And I did not hear you give a speech without mentioning that. Kudos on that. The State Board of Education has 9 members, Governor-elect Youngkin. Some of them are set to run in terms through 2025. Can you fire them all, or do you have to wait for them to be termed out and start slowly to replace? You don't even get a replacement under their terms until June of next year.
Yeah, so we actually will have rolling appointments. That's just the way that the Virginia appointment schedule works with the Board of Education, and we'll be making those rolling appointments. And we've already got lots of people who put their hands up to be part of that. So as I said earlier, I think we're going to have a real deep well of capability and leadership on our Board of Education over time. And I do believe that we're going to end up with a curriculum and an approach towards education that really will allow Virginia's kids to soar.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Where they just get to march right into America because they feel as if they deserve it. Now, you watch videos of this, they're not stopping. They call this the mother of all caravans, is what is being built right now in Mexico. And that does not count all the other millions and millions of people that have crossed illegally into America. Can we get an exact number on that, Connor, of the millions of people that have crossed into America? 1.7 million that have already crossed into the interior of our country. 1.7 million people. To give an idea of how many people that is, that's more people than the entire state of Idaho. Idaho's like 1.8 million people, so it's about one state of Idaho so far this year. We're here in Idaho right now. Whole state of Idaho illegally entering into America. So I have a couple questions. Who is funding this caravan? Republican attorney generals in red states, they need to start to investigate the money flows because the Department of Justice is too busy going after moms and dads at school board meetings and using the Patriot Act against them. Republican attorney generals need to start to open up investigations saying, who's funding these caravans? Who's funding the ability for people to illegally enter into our country, a crime? That is a criminal enterprise that no one cares about. No one even wants to talk about. But this cuts at the very core of what it means to be a citizen in the American constitutional system, where if you feel as if that the lawful are penalized to an unfair extent, and if you just get to come from Nicaragua, you get to just walk into the country, no questions asked.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
So I don't have a good answer because I have the same inability as you do.
Okay, hold on. That's it. That's perfect. He has the same inability to trust the American medical profession as I do. So if you want to dismiss me as a conservative pundit, talk show host, columnist, whatever you want to call me, fine, dismiss me. How do you dismiss him? American medical establishment is composed of fraudulent cowards. Okay? Period. End of issue. They have no interest in your welfare. They have interest in money and in being sheep. That's it. That's the American Medical Association, the CDC, and the FDA. And the fact that the New York Times trusts them shows how corrupt the New York Times is. That is it.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
A lot done. We're going to get a lot
Glenn
done.
Youngkin, it's great to talk to you, Governor-elect, and I look forward to talking to you early and often. Congratulations on a victory heard around the country.
Thank you so much, Hugh, and you have a great day. And again, I appreciate always you making time for me on your show, and I look forward to continuing it.
Anytime, Governor-elect, Governor Glenn Youngkin. It's great to have you. Be well. I'm switching from Governor Youngkin to Michael Oren. He's in Israel. We had an election here, Michael Oren. We got a brand new governor. I don't know when you lived in Washington, if you ever lived in Virginia, or if you stayed in the district. Michael, are you there?
Yeah.
We're not hearing you very well. Yes.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you barely. Are you on a speaker or something?
I just lost you. I can't. Don't go anywhere. Hold it.
I won't go anywhere. When we make one
Can
of
you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we'll try this. Ready?
Yes, I'm still here, Michael.
I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
We're not hooking up here. But yeah,
All right.
everyone
Michael
in
Oren.
Virginia, no, I spent a lot of time in Virginia, though.
And so, in Israel, who runs the education system? When it's woke and it's broke, who has to fix it?
The state. We don't, the founding fathers of the United States, God bless them, were so afraid of tyranny, right? The King of England, that they distributed power. So, during Corona, the governor of New York couldn't tell the mayor of New York City to open up the schools. And the president of the United States couldn't tell the governor of New York to open schools. We have one minister of education who is responsible to one government, and they tell what goes on in the schools.
Well, how do you make of that system? That seems very anti-distribution of power and very centralized.
Yep, it is. Yep, it is. And it's, again, it's those founding fathers. It's Madison and Jefferson and Hamilton and Jay, who, their experience was with the King of England, and they just wanted to distribute power and make sure that nobody could get a monopoly over it. But most states aren't like that. America's very unique in that way.
Yeah, I just got the
also
new Andrew Roberts biography of George III called The Last King of America. I can't wait to read it. But in the new Israeli government, you get a minister of education then, and that individual, they decide curriculum, they decide critical race theory, they decide all that?
Yes, but there are different schools here also. We have different types of education. You have a religious system, you have a secular system, you have an Arab system. But usually, yes, it's coordinated and has to be approved by the education ministry.
All right, I want to go to a Times of Israel headline this morning. Iran, EU say nuclear talks to resume on November 29 in Vienna. I don't think Joe Biden is going to be stopped any way, shape, or form. He's going to get back into a JCPOA, and Israel's going to have to act. Is that your realism as well?
It has to be our sort of default position, and we have to be prepared for it. I don't want to influence the editors of the Wall Street Journal, but I put in an op-ed yesterday that explains something that I've talked about on your show several times, why Israel cannot coexist with a threshold capacity Iran, whereas the United States maybe can, or think it can. And that's, it's a very technical issue, but threshold basically means the ability to make a bomb very, very quickly. So the Biden administration says, well, Iran's not going to get a bomb on our watch. Well, it's not going to get a bomb, but it could get the ability to get a bomb. And for us, that's a totally insufferable position, because every time we go to war against Hezbollah or Hamas or any of these other proxies of Iran, we're going to have an Iranian threshold capacity gun to our forehead. And it will greatly, greatly impair our ability to defend ourselves against terror.
So, Michael Oren, this is not a quick answer, but I want to get it started. The second order impact of an Israeli strike on Iran, does that mean a long, enduring war between Israel and its allies in the Middle East, which would include the UAE and Saudi Arabia quietly or not so quietly, Jordan? Would that go on a long time?
Not if you do it right, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've been a long opponent of Israel's longstanding policy of retaliating against these Iranian proxies like Hezbollah and then paying a price for it because we get branded war criminals, whereas we should be hitting what the Saudis call the head of the snake. And every time a rocket comes over to Hezbollah, we shouldn't be hitting Lebanon. We should be blowing up an oil refinery in the Gulf, an Iranian refinery. And I just think that if we bring the war to Iran and don't let them use the proxies to bleed us, then I think the war can end much more quickly.
Do you believe that Naftali agrees with you, the Prime Minister and your current Defense Minister, and would your allies join you?
I hope so. I hope that the Prime Minister understands this. And I think our allies will do as much as humanly possible they can. At the end of the day, Israel has to defend itself by itself, and we have the ability, we have the right, and any assistance we can get, we'll take, but we can't count on it. Again, it's a default position, and I think that we can defend ourselves.
And we got 30 seconds, Michael Oren. Do you expect this to kick off anytime in the next 6 months?
We have to be prepared for it. And I've written repeatedly that I don't think Iran will wait a long time, and Iran now is very quickly approaching that threshold capacity, which is intolerable for the state of Israel.
I agree with you, and I just don't think Tony Blinken and Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan have any idea how close we are to that. Michael Oren from Israel, thank you for joining me on Coming Back America, hour number 2. Your reactions to Governor Glenn Youngkin. I'll play the part you didn't hear. 1-800-520-1234 connects you to the Thursday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century, but in the wrong hands,
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
that's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
There's an old brown battered notebook in my office at work. You have to find it, take it, and keep it hidden at all costs. The G20 leaders meeting downtown, they're in danger. In fact, the whole of downtown could be in danger.
If we are to build a superhuman, we must first eliminate those who are flawed.
People are created equally. All of downtown, the high-rises were built on rollers to withstand horizontal shakes. A vertical quake this size could collapse half of downtown.
We have commenced the countdown.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
The Union for the referees, however, has voted in favor of a vaccine mandate, but the players have not. And Kyrie Irving is refusing to get vaccinated. New York City is one of, I think, 2 cities that is requiring proof of having been vaccinated in order to play. Here's what he said again.
I know I can use my platform to spread positivity and spread light on the things that matter to me, and I just care about our world a lot. And if I'm going to be demonized for that, at least let me go out on my own accord. First things first, this isn't about me, and it's not about me dispelling, what's being said about me particularly or for anybody. It's just saying, I'm standing with all those that, believe in what's right and are doing what's right for themselves. Everybody has a personal choice with their lives. Everybody has a right to feel a certain type of way. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. Everybody's entitled to do what they feel is best for themselves, and putting me as a hero or painting me as a villain, sort of say, or going against the vaccine mandates, like that wasn't my intent at all. And to be sitting in this seat here and seeing, the way that this is dividing our world up, being vaccinated or being unvaccinated, it's just sad to see. It's creating a lot of division, a lot of confusion, a lot of people saying things that are untrue. We're not giving space for each other to speak. You got doctors out here working hard, physicians out here working hard, and everybody's trying to do what's best for them and their families, which I respect. And I'm always going to put that first.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And, I got to share with you a little behind-the-scenes conflict we just had. My producer, of course, is very diligent about dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And today I'm going to have a conversation with Molly Hemingway, who wrote a book called Rigged. She wrote a book detailing the ways that Mark Zuckerberg funded communities that Biden desperately needed. Molly Hemingway is a constant, consistent voice questioning the integrity of the November 2020 election. They'll try to silence that. They'll censor that. They'll shut it down. That's where we are. If you dare question the integrity of the election, they try to cancel you. They censor that view. You're not allowed to do it. You may not do it. But why do Democrats get to do it? Why does Terry McAuliffe get to do it? Why does Stacey Abrams get to do it? Why does Nancy Pelosi get to do it? Why does Hillary Clinton get to do it? Why do Democrats? We know the answer. Because they're fraudulent. These are liars with zero consistency. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. People are marching in the streets and peacefully objecting to mandates, to firing people. And yes, over election integrity.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The most powerful organs of the state are not merely corrupt, but that they've been weaponized.
We are now all rooting for his success.
That's not what happened. It was a complete ambush.
I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
And the audience was, ha, 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 ha. How funny to set up an innocent man.
This is what third world security states do. They spy on their political opponents like this.
This is part of a concerted Russian influence operation.
Russians, I'm not going to be specific as
he knew he could just say it on TV and then hide behind, well, it's all classified, I can't get into it.
It divided the country in ways that people can't imagine. It's inspired massive violence. It's given people who are bad faith actors a license to do whatever they want.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Waltz right into the country. They get to have anchor babies. The other side wants to give them amnesty, wants to make them citizens. This is not sustainable. We know it's not sustainable. And the ruling class in both parties, by the way, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, they want this for votes. They want this for government dependency. They want this for cheap labor. Now, I'm pleased to see that Texas is now stepping up and saying we're not going to put up with this. Texas needs to defy federal authority, arrest every single person that comes from this caravan. They need to be welcoming this caravan, not with benefits and signs, but with handcuffs and chartered flights back to right where they came from immediately. No questions asked. Don't put them in front of a judge. Put them on a plane and get them back. They broke the law. That would be justice. A 7-year-old would say, yeah, they deserve to go back because they broke our laws.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at Rumble.
Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I will be posting shortly the transcript and audio of my interview with Governor Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin. I'll play the rest of it you didn't hear under the commercial break in the next segment. I do have to play for you, though. The president had a press conference yesterday. I want to go through some of his answers. Here is his first answer on the negotiations between his Department of Justice and the ACLU over families separated at the border under President Trump. They were being offered up to $450,000. Many news outlets reported this was where the settlement discussions were. It's a toxic issue. Americans basically rebelled and threw up their hands and said, is Joe Biden nuts? And so he took a question on it yesterday and said this, cut number one.
So it'd be good.
I think so, too. About the way forward, Mr. President, as you were leaving for your overseas trip, there were reports that were surfacing that your administration is planning to pay illegal immigrants who are separated from their families at the border up to $450,000 each, possibly $1 million per family. Do you think that might incentivize more people to come over illegally?
If you guys keep sending that garbage out, yeah, but it's not true.
So this is a garbage report?
Yeah.
Okay. So
$450,000 per person. Is that what you're saying?
That was separated from a family member at the border under the last administration.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Someone should tell Joe Biden what's going on at the Department of Justice. He got a question on how come he got shellacked. Cut number two.
How much responsibility do you take for the dismal results in Virginia and beyond last night?
Well, look, yesterday reminded me of that one of the sacred rights we have is to be able to go out and cast our votes. And remember that we all have an obligation to accept the legitimacy of these elections. I was talking to Terry to congratulate him today. He got 600,000 more votes than any Democrat ever has gotten. We brought out every Democrat about there was, more votes than ever has been cast for a Democratic incumbent. I'm not incumbent, a Democrat running for governor. And no governor in Virginia has ever won when he's of the same or he or she's the same party as the sitting president. What I do know is, that people want us to get things done. They want us to get things done. And that's why I'm continuing to push very hard for the Democratic Party to move along and pass my infrastructure bill and my Build Back Better bill. I think if we think about what we're talking about here. People are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, from COVID to school to jobs to a whole range of things, and the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And so if I'm able to sign into law, my Build Back Better initiative, I'm in a position where you're going to see a lot of those things ameliorated quickly and swiftly. So that has to be done.
Mr. President, given what you said, do you take some responsibility, and do you think that Terry McAuliffe would have won if your agenda had passed before Election Day?
Well, I think we should have passed before Election Day, but I'm not sure that I would be able to have changed the number of very conservative folks who turned out in the red districts who were Trump voters. But maybe.
You won the state by 10 points, Mr. President.
No, I know we did, but I was running against Donald Trump.
He's not going to accept any responsibility. He wants the Democrats to go down the electoral suicide hole with him. Cut number three, he made a joke.
And one more thing. Our vaccination program is not only helping us save lives and beat the pandemic, it's helping our economic recovery and helping us grow. In the 3 months before I came to office, the economy was stagnant, creating only 60,000 jobs a month. Since I've taken office, it's now averaging 600,000 new jobs every month. That's the average.
Oh, stop. That was a joke. It just wasn't the intentional joke. I find it hilarious that he thinks people are going to believe that the COVID shutdown is comparable to what's going on now. Let's go to the joke that he intended to make. Cut number four.
$1,000 a year if you live here. You will never have to pay that much money if you live in Washington or wherever you live. No more than 7% of your income. They're going to see that they'll get tax breaks, genuine tax breaks. If that's Trump, to tell him I'm busy. Bad joke. But anyway,
a bad
the
joke
point
that
is,
he's used repeatedly, but it's in his muscle memory. And as you get older, you tell the same stories and you tell the same bad jokes, and they don't get any better. He then goes on to talk about the election results last night. I just love this. Cut number 6.
we have to speak to them, though. We have to speak to them and explain them. Look, I just think people are at a point, and it's understandable, where there's a whole lot of confusion.
There's a whole lot of, we don't want you, Joe, and we don't want this absurd, ridiculous expansion of government. We don't want more inflation. Stop spending money. Stop the Build Back Better nightmare bonanza for special interests. Stop the infrastructure bill. Redo it all. Take a deep breath. Stop. Meanwhile, liberal allies, and Yamich is a friend of mine. I think I just saw her at National. She and her husband were coming back from a trip. She's a great lady. She is a leftist. All right, she's not a unbiased reporter. Listen to these two questions. Cut number 8.
What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
All right, false claims about critical race theory is embedded in a question. It's a statement embedded in a question. So is this. Cut number 9 by
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're
lying about, that's a statement embedded in a question. Doesn't really matter what the president says. It tells you about the media. In fact, the Free Beacon went around and got a montage of media types propping up the Democrats' claims about CRT. Cut number 10.
We do not teach critical race theory here in Virginia. It has never been taught.
We should say over and over that critical race theory is not being taught in schools.
CRT is not being taught in schools.
Never mind that it's fake.
That's right.
Critical race theory isn't taught. Critical race theory is not even taught in Virginia schools.
Critical race theory, which is not currently taught in any Virginia public school.
Something that's not even taught in Virginia schools.
To say that it's not taught in schools, CRT, that's not enough.
It's really not on the curriculum in Virginia.
Critical race theory not taught in Virginia public schools.
Critical race theory is not actually being taught
exactly
in Virginia schools.
Even though it's not actually taught anywhere, even though it's not a real thing.
It's just amazing to me that they can say that. Now, I went and got the easiest definition. Critical race theory is the subset of critical race theory, of critical theory. The crits came out of Harvard Law in the late 70s. They were around Michigan when I went to law school. I've been teaching for 25 years. I know crits up and down. There's critical race theory. There's critical gender theory. There's just critical theory, which is a neo-Marxist assessment that the laws aren't really the laws. They're power structures that impose the values of the powerful on the oppressed. And when it comes to race, the power of whites on every other non-white group through a variety of means that you have to sleuth out and get into the structures of racism because it's inherent in everything. It's systemic. And the idea that disparate racial outcomes are the result of complex changing and subtle social institution and dynamics that are beyond an individual's reach. It is not about explicit and intentional prejudice of individuals, but you have to get to systemic racism in yourself. It's everywhere in Virginia. Why has Thomas Jefferson High School abandoned merit selection? They did so on the basis of equity. That's CRT. What about Christopher Rufo finding the 2015 memo of the Department of Education in Virginia telling Virginia public schools to, quote, embrace critical race theory in order to re-engineer attitudes and belief systems? That is a explicit memo, but it's in every teacher training. It doesn't mean that. It's like saying that Christianity was in the schools when prayer was said at the beginning. All right, if you go back and just revert, why did anti-prayer people want the prayer at the beginning of the day gone? Because they thought it set a context for the entire day that violated the First Amendment. Now, I think they were wrong. The Supreme Court agreed with them. There's no more prayer. Critical race theory is in the water of education everywhere. It's in teacher training, it's in teacher instruction with their students, it's in demonstrations, it's in presentation, it's in subject matter choice. No, they don't get a book that said critical race theory. But that nostrum by the media goes to show it's not a media anymore. It's just the Democratic Party on a set. That's what it's become. All of the networks, all of them except Fox, the Democratic Party on a set. And we have to realize that, and you have to go get the Salem News Channel app because you just can't watch media anymore because you'll get Yamich on PBS, Public Broadcasting System, with someone who asserts the Republicans are lying about critical race theory, who believes they're making false claims. What do you do with that? You turn off the TV and you get the Salem News Channel app, and you stick with me, Hugh Hewitt, on the radio, and you download me and you send me to your friends, and I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Key City Capital.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Justice is something a country must at least attempt to get right. You're going to have things that fall through the cracks. You're going to have externalities, you're going to have issues, but you have to at least try to make a country just. The current regime is basically saying we don't even want to attempt to preserve the American ideal of justice. That justice is nothing more than us being in charge and you being under our power. Socrates said, Is it not the purpose of a juryman's office to give justice as favor to whoever seems good to him, but to judge according to the law? This is what he is sworn to do. Our people in charge, our leaders, were sworn to protect our country. 1.7 million people just waltz right into the country. They get to have anchor babies. The other side wants to give them amnesty, wants to make them citizens. This is not sustainable. We know it's not sustainable. And the ruling class in both parties, by the way, the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, they want this for votes. They want this for government dependency. They want this for cheap labor. Now, I'm pleased to see that Texas is now stepping up and saying we're not going to put up with this. Texas needs to defy federal authority, arrest every single person that comes from this caravan. They need to be welcoming this caravan, not with benefits and signs, but with handcuffs and chartered flights back to right where they came from immediately. No questions asked. Don't put them in front of a judge. Put them on a plane and get them back. They broke the law. That would be justice. A 7-year-old would say, yeah, they deserve to go back because they broke our laws.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We'll see one young lady identify as transgender, and the next thing you know, 6 or 7 young ladies in that same school are now identifying as transgender.
Children taught at age 5 they can create their gender identity, and it's being celebrated.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Every cell of their body that has a nucleus is male or female.
We've now seen parents losing custody of their children if they don't go along with this.
We've all been created XY or XX, so that means there's only 2 genders. And so really the battle is against the creator.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The most powerful organs of the state are not merely corrupt, but that they've been weaponized.
We are now all rooting for his success.
That's not what happened.
It was a complete ambush.
I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
And the audience was, ha 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 ha. How funny to set up an innocent man.
It divided the country in ways that people can't imagine. It's inspired massive violence.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our
Our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you.
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, live inside the Beltway. Last hour, I talked with Virginia's governor-elect Glenn Youngkin, his first radio interview since winning on Tuesday evening. Here is the part of the interview you didn't hear because we went to commercial break. 3 more questions, Governor-elect Youngkin. Thanks for the time this morning. I appreciate it. I know you're probably exhausted. Universities in the state, whether it's the university, whether it's William and Mary, whether it's George Mason, James Madison, they are fundamentally unbalanced. The left has marched through them. How does a governor get these state-funded institutions under the control of non-ideological players? Should the hiring of faculty be taken away from faculty and given to people who are fair?
Well, let me start. Virginia's college system is ranked in the tops of the country. It's very, very good. And I'm incredibly encouraged by the quality of education that kids who come to college in Virginia. I think that over time we need to make sure that again our universities are providing an education that's balanced, that we have freedom of speech that is fully embraced on our university campuses, and that we don't have a cancel culture on our university campuses, and that's a real challenge I think on many campuses today. I will say we saw it during the election a bit, and I think that's one of the things we have to really, really focus on. I also think that we've got a great opportunity with our historically black colleges and universities. I pledged to include funding for our HBCUs in my first budget, and I will do that for every budget that comes thereafter. And so, Virginia's universities are some of the most respected in the world. We're going to continue to make sure that they stand for the ideals that we all embrace, and having our First Amendment right fully expressed on our university campuses is really important to me.
Now, there's a new campus springing up in Alexandria, Amazon HQ2, and a new campus of Virginia Tech. Are you going to have a special representative for what is going to be the new Silicon Valley? The East Coast Silicon Valley is in your state?
Yeah, I believe that innovation has to be at the heart of my next administration. Virginia has not, over the course of the last few years, been a great place to start a business. We're ranked 49th in the nation as best place to start a business. And so we will, in fact, have a big focus on innovation, and I'm looking forward to tapping into the great talent that exists. What's happening in Northern Virginia, particularly around Amazon HQ2, is really exciting with the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus. But we have to have innovation spread across the Commonwealth. And there's a great opportunity with accelerators and incubators to actually grow around all of our great universities. And I've been very excited to watch the corporate partnering that's gone on, particularly between Hampton Roads and Richmond.
That is great.
As they embark on a new innovation corridor that would extend down I-64. So this is a great opportunity for us to really unleash Virginia innovation, and this is something that's really exciting for me because, of course, when it comes to starting business and creating jobs, having a thriving entrepreneurial culture is really important.
Last question, and short one. We got 15 seconds, Governor. Who's going to help you pick judges?
Governor doesn't do that in Virginia, and so that's left to our legislature, and so as the legislature sorts out its leadership, because one of the things they're going to have to do is get all those committee assignments set as Republicans will take back the majority in our House of Delegates. And of course, the Senate will stay with the Democrats in control, but it's a 21-19 ratio in our Senate. We're going to work constructively together. And as I said, I started out my day yesterday speaking with leadership from both the Senate and the House that have been good leaders for the Democrats, and I'm looking forward to an incredibly constructive working arrangement, and we're going to get a lot done. Glenn
Youngkin, it's great to talk to you, Governor-elect, and I look forward to talking to you early and often. Congratulations on a victory heard around the country.
Thank you so much, Hugh, and you have a great day. And again, I appreciate always you making time for me on your show, and I look forward to continuing it.
Anytime, Governor-elect Governor Glenn Youngkin. It's great to have you. Be well. It's also great to have AndrewandTodd.com as sponsors of this show. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian. Together they are AndrewandTodd.com. It's a division of Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They are lenders. Call them at 888-888-1172 or go to their website, AndrewandTodd.com. Answer a couple of questions. Home market interest rates are going to go up. The Fed has announced it. The British Central Bank has begun it. You're going to get left behind if you don't get on the phone today. 888-888-1172 and say, I got to buy a house. I got to refinance my house. I got to get money out for college. I want to do it at these ridiculously low 30-year fixed rates. Before they go up, and they are going up, don't wait another day. Go to AndrewandTodd.com. I've known Andrew for 20-plus years. Todd for half that time. You can trust them. I do. They did my loan, 888-888-1172.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. 30 years have passed since Justice Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. His tenure there has been consequential indeed. He's the court's foremost proponent of natural law, an understanding that our individual rights are transcendent and come from God. This understanding undergirds his approach to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, powerfully informing the justices' unyielding commitment to limited government and equal justice before the law. Over the last 5 years, Justice Thomas has authored more opinions than any of his colleagues on the Supreme Court. His influence only continues to grow, and he's beloved by the scores of people who know him. He knows the names of the children of the marshals who guard the courthouse. He's mentored generations of clerks, treating them like family, and his distinctive hearty laugh rings out within his judicial chambers. May God bless this great, good, and brilliant man, and may he serve on the court many years longer.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Not translate into the ability to spread it. And that's an inference. What we know about the empirical studies looking at infected children versus infected adults and spread within their families, within their home dwelling units, is that children are very, very infrequently the cause of spread to other family members. It's almost always the adults spread to children, not the other way around. So we know from empirical studies that children don't spread the infection. And that being the case, there's little rationale for putting, masking children where we don't know that the mask has appreciable benefit, on top of the fact that the children don't really spread the infection very much.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
And by the way, have you contracted the coronavirus? Have you had it?
I have. I had it about a year ago.
Well, did you make the argument that the immunity is stronger than the vaccine?
Not in my religious exemptions interview, I did not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that argument's essentially removed. It's not on the table. We
Right.
tried to negotiate that at the beginning with our association, and it just was an argument the city was having because they were saying we're tied to the mandate, and the mandate doesn't allow for that.
Amazing. I played the other day an undercover video by an organization called Project Veritas, and they recorded 3 scientists with Pfizer, all admitting that contracting the coronavirus and surviving it gives you stronger immunity than the vaccine. All admitting it. And a couple of them admitted that they can't say it publicly. They signed non-disclosure agreements. And if they ever said anything about this, they'd be in real deep trouble.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy.
This story needs to be told across the world at a time where there's so much
negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Ilhan Omar is back at it again. You know, she's been kind of quiet lately. She told her constituents Saturday at a town hall meeting that the rise in gun violence in Minneapolis and the increase in carjackings is due to the police. They have chosen, she said, not to fulfill their oath of office and provide the public safety they owe to the citizens. Now, this is rich coming from her. She goes from wanting to defund the police to blaming the police for not being responsive enough as people are getting murdered and their cars getting jacked in Minneapolis. That's the left. That's today's Democrat Party. It is an extraordinary thing to witness. They're anti-police. They're against parent involvement in their kids' curriculum. They want to gouge us with more and more taxes. They want to force you to comply. They'll cancel you if you don't comply, ask Dave Chappelle. And evidently, they're okay with strapping little defenseless beagle puppies into cages where their little faces are eaten off by giant sandflies.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway as Democrats in disarray wander around trying to figure out their Democrats in the media. It's no longer a media. It's just Democrats in the media. I go back to my friend, and she is my friend, Michelle Cinder, in the White House press room yesterday. Cut number 8. Listen to this question.
What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
All right, stop. Successfully running on culture war issues is a statement of opinion as to what happened, and that's okay. Lying about critical race, making false claims about critical race theory is not. That's an expression, that's a twist that is inserting and embedding an opinion into what is allegedly a question. She doubles down. Yamich says this, cut number 9.
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't...
Lying about critical race theory. They are not lying about critical race theory. Yamiche thinks they're lying about critical race theory. They're not. But that is the media. All right, that is the media, and I want to go through this today with you. I want to play for you Sheila Jackson Lee on CNN. Cut number 19.
Well, the good news is we haven't lost in New Jersey. We're still holding on there with a great governor, and we hope that will see that governor reelected. And as it relates to Virginia, I've looked at that. I'm not a Virginian. I was there on Sunday talking to a lot of good Virginians, and they were excited about their candidates and excited about the future of Virginia. I really define Virginia as a case that was about local issues. Those were about parental issues. And unfortunately, racism raised its ugly head, and the Republican candidate used it very aptly. He followed the Trump playbook, use race, and get a win. And that's very sad. I mean, I'm not going to tie that to Democrats or anything we did here in Washington.
I'm not at all surprised that Democrats who don't want to stop spending money are going to define Virginia's wins for Glenn Youngkin and in-House delegate races and taking over the lieutenant governorship by an African-American woman and the attorney generalship by a Cuban-American man as racism. It's just, they don't have any other language for it. But Joy Reid is an anchor on MSNBC, cut number 20.
He was being subtle and being really tricky and slick until he dropped that Toni Morrison ad.
Yeah.
The Toni Morrison ad might have been the point at which he went too far. A lot of the people who heard the ad on that were sort of his maybe voters, maybe didn't even know who Toni Morrison was. But I promise you, black people know who Toni Morrison was. We grew up on her. Anybody who's my age or even a little bit younger, we read her in high school. She's the reason I wanted to be a writer. This is somebody who is beloved among black people, and particularly people who say education is important. That's why that question, I don't know what it means. If you're saying education is the most important issue, you might be a black voter who says, I'm defending great literature and defending Toni Morrison. And I don't like the idea that Youngkin wants to be a governor that would purge those books. What's next? The biography of Dr. King? Is W.E.B. Du Bois next? I mean, Dr. King said America might go to hell. Are we going to erase any of his, his more sort of robust commentary on America? Is that not going to be allowed to be taught? Trust and believe he took that so far that he probably animated some African-American voters too.
I guess I don't want to be the skunk at the garden party, but I think there's a sense among Republicans that what Youngkin did was where Trump ran as a guy who was going to ban all Muslims, Mexicans were rapists and murderers, black people came from bleep hole countries. He was such an uncouth and flagrant, debased. There was no conversation about race under him. It was beneath even people who said they voted for him. What Youngkin has done is he put it in a disguise.
Yes.
He gave it a fake name. And his candidacy is wrapped in two big lies. One is this half-truth. I flew an insurrection flag at my rally, but Trump said arm length, there's Trump.
Yep.
And the second big lie is that I watched his rally last Saturday. His campaign promise, and he was making this promise in Loudoun and in Alexandria, is on day one, I'm going to ban critical race theory. That is like us banning the ghosts.
Right.
There are no ghosts.
That's right.
So we can say,
now stop for a second. There are no ghosts. This is MSNBC. CNN is the same way. The network news is the same way. They deny what you see with your kids. They deny the shutdown driving a lot of parents. They deny the quarantine rules driving a lot of parents. Stephanie Cutter is very smart. She and I have crossed swords on TV for a long time. She was on with Chuck Todd, and she accurately articulated what Democrats really fear, cut 26.
And the one thing that we need to make sure that Republicans in 2022 don't become is the party of parents, because we need to be the party of parents. and we are. We're the ones that care about school funding. We're the ones that care about making sure that parents can send their kids to school because they have jobs to go to. All of this, we need to own that agenda. We cannot let it go. And it's not just about critical
Chuck
race theory.
had two Democrats on, unfortunately, because if there had been a Republican there, they would say, no, we believe in choice. We believe in parental control. We believe in shutting down bureaucrats over parents. We believe in making sure that history is taught as history and there is no indoctrination. That's actually the Republican point of view and has been for as long as I've been a Republican. I'm 65. We believe in school choice. We believe in paying teachers great. We want great teachers. We do not want administrivia. We do not want heavy on the educrats. We do not want a heavy hand from this. We want principals empowered, and we want choice. And we do not like critical race theory, either at the top or at the bottom or anywhere in between. We believe in merit. We believe in merit selection, and we always have. So there was no one to say that because the networks have just thrown in with the Democrats. They've given up. And I mean, it's up to Lester Holt now. It's everywhere. Everywhere in every network news. It's all left-wing now. It's just 100% left-wing. And anyone you find is an ever-Trumper, and that's what animates them, who's supposedly a Republican. It's just all left-wing. And that's what we have to deal with. Now, the good news is we can deal with it. Leader McConnell goes on the Senate floor, and you will hear him here, for example, cut number 13.
The bill our colleagues are writing behind closed doors is terrible from top to bottom. More debt, more taxes, and more inflation. Fewer options for American families. This reckless taxing and spending spree would hurt families and help China. This radical social takeover is the last thing Americans need and the last thing Americans want. The voters of America, just yesterday, gave our colleagues a preview of that fact last night. It's not too late. They could still pull back from the brink while they can.
They could. They're not going to. They've doubled down already. Joe Biden said so, and the media is urging them on. Pay no attention to the disaster you just had and what's ahead. Cut number 15, Mitch McConnell went last night to Fox to talk, which is the last news network, to talk to Martha McCullum. Cut number 15.
Do you think there's any chance that the president sees it that way, or will he be listening to these voices that say we need to double down and jam this thing through as soon as we can?
Oh, I think that's what they'll argue. I think Pelosi and Schumer and the president will argue that what people are really saying is, why don't you get this done? I think that's a misinterpretation of what happened yesterday. I don't think it was about the Democrats' failure to do it. I think it was because people didn't like that they were trying to do it. And getting a result on this massive, reckless tax and spending bill is not going to improve their position with the American people. I think we're going into 22 with a typical first midterm election and a new president with a midterm report card, and the American people gave the Biden administration yesterday an F.
They did indeed give them an F, and the Democrats responded by, give me another F, give me another F. I think the Republicans are going to take 40 seats, maybe 50, maybe more. They're going to get the Senate back because Democrats are tone deaf and dumb. And they're running on race, and it just drives people crazy. Winsome Sears, African-American woman, Marine Corps veteran, married to a Marine Corps veteran, went on Fox last night. She's the new lieutenant governor-elect of Virginia. She had heard what Joy Reid said about Republicans running a racist campaign in Virginia. Cut 21.
I wish Joy Reid would invite me on her show. Let's see if she's woman enough to do that. I'd go in a heartbeat, and we have a real discussion without Joy speaking about me behind my back, if you will. She talks about white supremacy. Does she know that I ran against a white supremacist? I mean, Joy, come on, get your facts straight, and then come talk to me.
Cut number 22, more of Winsome Sears.
We are framing too many issues in terms of race, and it just continues to divide us, and unfortunately politicians are using it as a tool because of the things that have happened to us historically to advance, I would think, their nefarious purposes. And so if we stop just looking at race and just looking at people, because you see, I'm destroying all the narratives about race. Look at me. Look at me. I am a heartbeat away from the governorship in case anything happens to the governor. And how are you going to tell me then I'm a victim? And I didn't do anything special to get here except stay in school and study.
She also became a Marine, so I think she might mention that. The Marine Corps had a lot to do with Winsome Sears. She's going to be the most in-demand speaker. She's a keynote at the 2024 Republican Convention, which ought to be in Cleveland, by the way, Rhonda McDaniel, if you're listening right now. Go back to where you won once and win again. Now, let me tell you about how you win through inflation. KeyCityCapital.com/Hugh. I've had Charlie Dombeck on the show. I want to encourage you to go and investigate KeyCityCapital.com/Hugh. Charlie and his team will begin by scrubbing your taxes backwards and forwards, and they will make sure you did not give money to the federal government you didn't need to do, and then they will look at your portfolio and they will guide you towards the investments that will make sense for you during high inflation, which is coming because the Democrats, as you have already heard today, took a look at the wipeout that they suffered yesterday. They held on to the New Jersey governorship, but I didn't spend a minute on that because it's Jersey. You know, no Chris Christie running. I understand that Pietrelli was a good guy and all that, but you know, the president of the New Jersey Senate lost to a truck driver who spent $200, who was mad because he didn't get a concealed carry. That's how mad people were. But you can't win in Jersey, so unless you're Chris Christie. Now, I will tell you, though, Democrats are just going to spend more money. So we're going to have an inflationary cycle that's beginning, and it's going to be terrible for you. If you need fixed rates of return, if you want investments that grow, please go to KeyCityCapital.com/Hugh. Call up Charlie, talk to Charlie at length, find out what it is that they offer, and start with your tax scrub. I really believe in these guys and gals, and I think you ought to do that. I also think you've got to get ReliefFactor.com into your life. I took it in the first hour, like I always do. Took it early in the first hour because I was talking to Glenn Youngkin. Generalissimo is working on that transcript now. We'll get the audio and the transcript up. But I took my relief factor early. I've got lots to do today in Alexandria, so I want you to know I'm taking a walk with an Alexandria Veterans Group to their Medal of Honor honoring Mr. Versace. I didn't know it existed, and so I'm going over to Old Town to wander around with him to the Versace Memorial. And I'll be on my feet a long time. I'm looking forward to it because I got Relief Factor on my side. I hope you get ReliefFactor.com on your side. Also hope that you've downloaded the Salem News Channel app and are now watching it in your kitchen, on a Roku, on Hulu, wherever you want. Watch the Salem News Channel. I was explaining to Schroeder when he was here, the Butler Beagles representative to me, to ask me to stop talking about their basketball fiascos. And he said, why the Salem News Channel? I said, a lot of people have a TV on. A lot of people have a TV on. And if they want good news, breaking news, the news you need, the analysis you must have, download the Salem News Channel app or put it on your Roku and watch me in the morning. The Salem News Channel. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Streaming on Salem Now.
¿Cuánto queda?
No queda nada. Que lo siento mucho.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Madre, padre, ¿quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Where they just get to march right into America because they feel as if they deserve it. Now, you watch videos of this, they're not stopping. They call this the mother of all caravans, is what is being built right now in Mexico. And that does not count all the other millions and millions of people that have crossed illegally into America. Can we get an exact number on that, Connor, of the millions of people that have crossed into America? 1.7 million that have already crossed into the interior of our country. 1.7 million people. To give an idea of how many people that is, that's more people than the entire state of Idaho. Idaho's like 1.8 million people, so it's about one state of Idaho so far this year. We're here in Idaho right now. Whole state of Idaho illegally entering into America. So I have a couple questions. Who is funding this caravan? Republican attorney generals in red states, they need to start to investigate the money flows because the Department of Justice is too busy going after moms and dads at school board meetings and using the Patriot Act against them. Republican attorney generals need to start to open up investigations saying, who's funding these caravans? Who's funding the ability for people to illegally enter into our country? A crime. That is a criminal enterprise that no one cares about. No one even wants to talk about. But this cuts at the very core of what it means to be a citizen in the American constitutional system, where if you feel as if that the lawful are penalized to an unfair extent, and if you just get to come from Nicaragua, you get to just walk into the country, no questions asked.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway Live. I hope you're watching on the Salem News Channel. Download it from Google or iTunes and just watch along. Senator Jim Talent, formerly senator from the great state of Missouri, now with the Bipartisan Policy Center, joins me. He's seen a lot of elections in his years. Jim Talent, what did you make of Tuesday night?
Well, the voters didn't like the policies. They didn't like the effect of the policies. They didn't like the way the policies were being marketed. And they didn't much like the people marketing them. Other than that, everything was fine for the president and Democrats, right? I mean, it was just, and you saw it coming. We all saw it coming. And I think the comments you've been making about the press are so insightful. And let me say for this reason, okay? If every interview that you do in public life, you're doing with complete friendlies who are throwing you softballs, you lose the edge. You slip into saying stupid things because you know you're never going to get contested. And I think this is really hurting the Democratic end. I mean, when McAuliffe, what would possibly cause a person in a debate to say that parents shouldn't be involved in the education of their kids?
Not having talked to me once. Not having heard from one Republican, one center-right reporter once about how education matters.
Exactly. McAuliffe is a smart guy. I mean, what would cause a president to look in a camera and say, I'm losing patience with any segment of the American electorate? When I saw that, and forget about the reason, forget about, right or wrong on the policy, you just don't do that sort of thing. And
Senator, I got to play for you in the audience that hadn't heard it. Yamiche Alcindor, colleague of mine. I know her. She's a nice person. Here are her two questions to Joe Biden yesterday. The answers don't matter. It's the question. Cut number 8.
What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
Okay, false claims about critical race theory, number 1. Cut number 9, Yamiche talking to the president.
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't have enough...
Okay, lying about critical race theory. Yamiche has made 2 statements of alleged fact to the President of the United States on national TV. She's the host of Washington Week in Review. She's a PBS NewsHour regular. What do you do about that, Jim Talent?
See, and the thing is, you're not doing any favors. You, for example, will put the hard questions to people, particularly office holders, and you do it in a very intelligent way. And everybody knows that. So when they're going on your show and they're going to be asked about a particular subject, they sit with the staff and say, okay, what are the hardest questions we could get asked, right? And that's really good because it forces you to up your game in the way you communicate. But if you don't think that's ever going to happen, you start getting really sloppy. And it's one of the reasons that, an adversarial press, as a politician, you don't like it, obviously, sometimes. But in the longer run, it's really good for you and your agenda and your ability to communicate effectively with people.
And Jim, I want to take this up to the next level. The crisis of credibility in this country. Nobody believes the big media, and nobody believes Tony Fauci, and nobody believes Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden. Nobody believed Donald Trump on the other side. We no longer have sort of a common ground of truth.
Yeah, it's the loss in credibility of political institutions, but also cultural and social institutions as the people, because the people who run, people don't trust these institutions because they are not, in fact, trustworthy. And they underestimate voters. They underestimate people. People learn about the things that affect them. So all these parents in Virginia, they learned about what's going on in the schools because it affects their kids. Okay, now sure, they can't name most of them, the provinces in Afghanistan, but they learn about things that affect them, whether it's education or health care or inflation or the shelves are empty or who's coming over the border.
My favorite example, Jim, Everybody knows Thomas Jefferson High School. It's the Stuyvesant High School of Northern Virginia. It's always been merit-based selection. It's no longer. The head of their PTA resigned because of equity issues and changes in admissions policy. Everybody knows about it, and the media doesn't discuss it. They say there's no CRT. It's maddening because people know they're being lied to.
That's right. And this is spreading out. What you saw in Virginia this is not just, core sort of politically involved conservatives who are, reading and watching their own particular, section of the media. But it's spreading out everywhere. I mean, we see this in Missouri. I talk to people. I try and read a pretty wide variety of things, and I have a lot of different friends. Now, to be fair, I'm not an officer. I'm not as busy as I was. So, look, you're right, and I think it's an extremely important observation.
Jim Tellen of the Bipartisan Policy Center, I hope you get the Bipartisan Policy Center to try and reclaim the news business, because it's now just an arm of the Democratic Party, and it is being regarded as such. That's why people need to download the Salem News Channel. I'll be right back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, live inside the Beltway. The news you need, the analysis you want on the next hour of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
He said, listen, I gotta give these niggas enough. Not too much, but enough that I have them voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
The race grievance industry would have you believe that blacks get up and think about nothing else except race.
If I tell you this is racist, yeah, I'm gonna get you emotional.
There is a whole big cottage industry for racism. If racism went away, a lot of people would be unemployed.
The mob during the Minneapolis riots following the death of George Floyd. A bunch of white thugs, frankly, burning down the city's traditional black and Asian business district.
They're racist, 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 racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
Go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Do you realize that Terry McAuliffe is still going around saying that Stacey Abrams had the election in Georgia stolen from her? I thought you weren't allowed to question the outcome of the election.
And he's running down the democracy, saying that our elections are not fair. The next day,
she would be the governor of Georgia today had the governor of Georgia not disenfranchised 1.4 million Georgia voters before the election. That's what happened to Stacey Abrams. They took the votes away.
Uh-oh. Hey, YouTube, you better ban me, because I just played a clip of Democrat Terry McAuliffe claiming that Stacey Abrams had the election stolen from her. That's election misinformation. If Virginia elects Terry McAuliffe next week, you'll deserve every bit of the misery you're going to get.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. there is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
The most powerful organs of the state are not merely corrupt, but that they've been weaponized to go after perceived domestic enemies. And that's very scary.
Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power.
We are now all rooting for his success. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
We don't live in the United States of America as any of us would like to understand it.
We have a peaceful transition of power process. That's not what happened.
They interviewed General Flynn, and they did it in what was a complete ambush.
I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
And the audience was, ha, 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 ha. How funny to set up an innocent man.
This is what third world security states do. They spy on their political opponents like this.
This is part of a concerted Russian influence operation.
Russian interference.
They colluded. They were in on it.
He would constantly say, I have seen evidence of collusion.
Until this is released, I can't comment. I can't go into the particulars.
Russians, I'm not going to be specific.
But he knew he could just say it on TV and then hide behind, well, it's all classified, I can't get into it.
Well, it's classified. You can't see it.
Collusion. You just got to be willing to see it.
New York's Daily News ran this front page, Trump is Hitler.
How could 62 million Americans vote for Hitler? Are 62 million Americans Nazis?
We really almost thought it was a joke. Like, really, you're not going to accept that you lost this election?
Then they see the Russia collusion narrative sitting right there in front of them and say, why don't we just say that he cheated?
It divided the country in ways that people can't imagine. It's inspired massive violence. It's given people who are bad faith actors a license to do whatever they want because they literally feel like they're fighting Russian spies and Nazis.
Russiagate has been the most egregious abuse of everything that was supposed to have been good about our government.
The thing that they were investigating the Trump campaign for is what they themselves were doing.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Justice is giving to every single man what is their due. There is a yearning for justice in the soul of humanity. And when a regular, normal American earning $55,000 a year, a police officer, a teacher, a firefighter, turns on TV, or they find out that thousands of people are just wanting to waltz into the country, they start to feel as if that's not fair. You don't need an over-explanation for this. The caravan and the subsequent illegal invasion of our country cuts at the core of American justice. A 7-year-old can see what's happening on the southern border and can say, there's something not right about that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Used social media, and they said that they would do whatever it took to make sure that he wasn't able to communicate directly with the people in an unfiltered fashion. And so they said about everything from deplatforming effective conservative voices, censoring the president and other people, creating algorithmic chaos where if you search for information, it would devalue information from right-leaning sources and elevate those on the left. Massive amounts of deplatforming and marginalizing of conservative voices to the tune of, this actually probably had more effect than anything, including propaganda media's malfeasance in the election. But they exerted massive control, and to think that it still came within 43,000 votes in 3 states, even after all they did, it tells you just how much.
Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway on this Thursday morning, and I am telling you, I love the news. My phone number is 1-800-520-1234. I love the news after a red wave. Now, there have been blue waves. I don't love the news after blue waves, but I always do find Republicans willing to accept reality. George W. Bush in 2006, the day after the election, we got whomped. People have to deal with realities. When they get blown out, they got to get reset. Not Democrats. No. Democrats are all for doubling down. Now, I'm going to run through the rundown I did earlier in the show in the event you just tuned in. Wall Street Journal, Youngkin's Virginia win offers midterm roadmap for GOP, warning for Democrats. By the way, my phone number is 1-800-520-1234. Has legacy media gone over the edge? They're reporting on critical race theory, the reality of it. I don't know how anyone in the country can trust anyone in media because they're just all political actors now. Everyone is a Democrat. Everyone is a Republican. They're either just not telling you or they are, like me, telling you I'm a Republican. But those who are attacking CRT in the media, and I got to play the montage. All right, let's play the montage about critical race theory in the media. It is cut number 10.
We do not teach critical race theory here in Virginia. It has never been taught.
We should say over and over that critical race theory is not being taught in schools.
CRT is not being taught in schools.
Never mind that it's fake.
That's right.
Critical race theory isn't taught.
Critical race theory is not even taught in Virginia schools.
Critical race theory, which is not currently taught in any Virginia public school.
Something that's not even taught in Virginia schools.
To say that it's not taught in schools, CRT, that's not enough.
It's really not on the curriculum in Virginia.
Critical race theory not taught in Virginia public schools.
Critical race theory is not actually being taught
exactly
in Virginia school.
Even though it's not actually taught anywhere, even though it's not a real thing.
The way to respond to that, if any serious person was on the news anymore, and they're not, is CRT is operating in Virginia. Right? CRT is operating. It was issued as an edict by the 2015 Department of Education, then Governor McAuliffe. It is in the water everywhere. It's why Thomas Jefferson High School no longer has a merit-based selection because of equity issues. Terry McAuliffe says we have 80% white teachers. We need to raise the number of teachers of color. That's critical race theory because race matters in everything in critical race theory. So the thing to say is critical race theory operates in Virginia schools. There isn't a book that says CRT for first graders. Of course not. That's stupid. That's also a straw man. The argument is that CRT is operating in Virginia schools and parents rejected it overwhelmingly. Parents are now. Stephanie Cutter is on with Chuck Todd, and she says about the only honest thing I heard in 2 days of coverage about what happened in Virginia, cut 26.
And the one thing that we need to make sure that Republicans in 2022 don't become is the party of parents. Because we need to be the party of parents. and we are. We're the ones that care about school funding. We're the ones that care about making sure that parents can send their kids to school. Because they have jobs to go to. All of this, we need to own that agenda. We cannot let it go. And it's not just about critical race theory. It's coming out of COVID. It's parental frustration. It's parents being involved in their kids' schooling. We need to pay attention to all of it.
Stephanie is right about what Democrats need to do, but there wasn't a Republican on the panel to say that's what we've been doing. And Chuck didn't object when she said we, which I think he should have because he's not a Democrat. He actually tries hard not to be a Democrat. But there was another Democrat on the panel. MSNBC is just a Democrat operation. I'm afraid NBC News is now too. You'll get some Never Trumpers sprinkled in, but it's just a Democrat operation. So is CBS, so is ABC, of course, CNN long ago. Malcolm in Atlanta, Georgia. Good morning, Malcolm. What's on your mind?
I'm a Republican. I voted Republican since 1972. I think my credentials are good.
Actually, now, Malcolm, let me say something. Those credentials may or may not be true, right? You understand that the audience may not believe that you're a Republican since 1972 because a lot of people call up radio shows and lie. I just want to let you know that, can you name a Republican senator from Georgia?
I'm willing to agree. I can make my point regardless.
No, but Malcolm, can you name a Republican senator from Georgia?
Sure I can. Raphael Warnock.
No, he's a Democrat.
A Republican senator, Purdue.
Yeah. Okay, that's one. How about one from before Purdue and Loeffler?
The one from before Purdue and Loeffler. Okay, I moved here in 2004. Let me think for a second. Isaacson.
Okay, I trust you. Go ahead. What's your point?
Okay, the most important topic to discuss is the role of Donald Trump. Or his non-role. He's not going to go away.
Malcolm, thank you. No, it's not. That's not the most important issue. The most important issue is critical race theory. Bradley in Orlando, Florida. That's what I'm talking about, at least. It might not be nuclear war is the most important issue, but what I'm talking about is critical race theory. Go ahead, Bradley.
How you doing, Hugh? I want to start off saying go Steelers, and second off, that's how it's going this morning. So I want to talk about CRT. I'm young. I don't really have any kids. I want to talk about if it's going on everywhere. If it's not, what places, what are common grounds that they aren't teaching it there? And also, most importantly, if it's public schools and our government wants to decide basically what the agenda is on it, what's stopping people from going to private schools besides money?
Well, number one, it's money. Number two, I don't know where CRT is. It's not everywhere. CRT is primarily transmitted in teacher training. It's primarily in the teachers' workshop days. It's primarily in what they're asked to emphasize and not emphasize. It's primarily in textbooks. It's primarily in what they like to call, they got all this fancy language now for the various modules that they teach, rubrics, crazy stuff that is descended upon American education and the educrats. But it's not everywhere. I want to emphasize, it's very much in Virginia. That's why Thomas Jefferson High School has done away with merit admission to the most important high school in Virginia. The most competitive high school in Virginia was all merit-based admissions. Now they have equity admissions. That's CRT in operation.
Okay, and two more questions. One, what are they trying to get at whenever they say they want to make teachers more, I guess a bad way to say it is more ethnic, but...
No, that's the way they want diversity. What they're trying to do is fire white teachers and bring in teachers based on the color of their skin, which is unconstitutional. It's absolutely forbidden. We may not use race in the government to hire or fire. It's such an astonishing thing that Terry McAuliffe called for the other night that there wasn't enough time to set a fire about it because he waited for the last day to make a naked appeal to race that is unconstitutional. Thank you, Bradley. Rudy in South Carolina. Good morning, Rudy.
Morning. I agree with you wholeheartedly about legacy media. They just dominate the whole thing with their mixing of fact and opinion in their questions. And my question is, do you think the fairness doctrine should be commercialized?
No. Look, they are private companies. NBC has chosen to go way left. ABC has chosen to go way left. CNN went left a long time ago. MSNBC went over the cliff years ago. That's a free choice. That's why we stand up the Salem News Channel. That's why Fox News is thriving. It's why Newsmax is thriving. Why the Salem... But I mourn the death of journalism, the idea that reporters would actually fairly collect the news and not... I really am shocked at Yamiche asserting that Republicans are lying about CRT and making false claims about CRT in a White House press conference. It's actually the worst example of media propaganda I have ever seen in the White House. The worst. Steve, thank you. Steve in Detroit, Michigan. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm a teacher over in Ypsilanti, and we had teacher training on Tuesday, which was the CRT. They call it by a different name. And we used to they started this like 3 years ago, and we used to have anonymous questions we could ask, and they did that the first time, and we had a bunch of pushback from some teachers because they were anonymous. Well, they took that out quickly. Last year, was the first year that we didn't do that, so nobody's really pushing back because their name is attached to any kind of questions for this lady.
And was it CRT? Was your training CRT?
Well, not specifically. It's racial equity and...
Okay, that's CRT. It's all about race, right?
Exactly.
Everything is about race. If it's raining race, you're not going to stay dry. That's what CRT is. And Democrats saying that isn't, and Yamiche telling the president that Republicans are lying about it. The media's in on it, friends. Just understand, you got to listen to me. You got to download the Salem News Channel. Pull the plug. Pull the plug on legacy media. It's Democrat media. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Where they just get to march right into America because they feel as if they deserve it. Now, you watch videos of this, they're not stopping. They call this the mother of all caravans, is what is being built right now in Mexico. And that does not count all the other millions and millions of people that have crossed illegally into America. Can we get an exact number on that, Connor, of the millions of people that have crossed into America? 1.7 million that have already crossed into the interior of our country. 1.7 million people. To give an idea of how many people that is, that's more people than the entire state of Idaho. Idaho's like 1.8 million people, so it's about one state of Idaho so far this year. We're here in Idaho right now. Whole state of Idaho illegally entering into America. So I have a couple questions. Who is funding this caravan? Republican attorney generals in red states, they need to start to investigate the money flows because the Department of Justice is too busy going after moms and dads at school board meetings and using the Patriot Act against them. Republican attorney generals need to start to open up investigations saying, who's funding these caravans? Who's funding the ability for people to illegally enter into our country? A crime. That is a criminal enterprise that no one cares about. No one even wants to talk about. But this cuts at the very core of what it means to be a citizen in the American constitutional system. Where if you feel as if that the lawful are penalized to an unfair extent, and if you just get to come from Nicaragua, you get to just walk into the country, no questions asked.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
So I don't have a good answer because I have the same inability as you do.
Okay, hold on. That's it. That's perfect. He has the same inability to trust the American medical profession as I do. So if you want to dismiss me as a conservative pundit, talk show host, columnist, whatever you want to call me, fine, dismiss me. How do you dismiss him? American medical establishment is composed of fraudulent cowards. Okay? Period. End of issue. They have no interest in your welfare. They have interest in money and in being sheep. That's it. That's the American Medical Association, the CDC, and the FDA. And the fact that the New York Times trusts them shows how corrupt the New York Times is. That is all it does. And I am well and healthy and had COVID 2 weeks ago. And the primary reason is that I had been taking ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. And if you're, and of course zinc. And if your doctor will not prescribe this to you as a prophylactic, get rid of that doctor. He or she is a sheep. They are ignorant sheep. They don't even know what the science says. That's it. By the way, your doctor may be the kindest human you know in your life. Keep them as a friend if you like. Drop them as a doctor. I did.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
He said, listen, I gotta give these niggas enough.
Or go to salemnow.com.
There is no cloud in my sky, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway live on this Thursday morning. Still just basking in massive Republican wins across the country wherever elections were held at every level. The New Jersey governor slipped past, but the head of the state Senate got taken out by a Republican who spent $200. A truck driver who was upset he didn't get a concealed carry permit took out the most powerful member of the New Jersey State Senate. Virginians have put the Republicans back in charge of their assembly, which makes great sense. Now they can't pass a bunch of embarrassing bills to the governor and make him veto it. It's got to be a consensus work to repair Virginia's shattered consensus over public education, to get the economy working again, make it a place competitive with Tennessee. Glenn Youngkin was my guest in hour number one. The audio and transcript will post shortly at HughHewitt.com. I encourage you to see what his plans are. It is now up at HughHewitt.com. We'll push it out to people. We had a long conversation, a lot of news in there. Let me check markets, brought to you by Andrew and Todd.com, great sponsors of the show. They are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, 888-888-1172. If you need to buy a house, buy a rental property, help your son or daughter get a house, help your grandson or granddaughter get a house. If you're a senior and you want a reverse mortgage, you don't ever want to pay any more money on a mortgage payment. You still have to pay your homeowner association, but you paid off your house, but life's a little close, a little difficult. You'd like to get the money out of your house now and maybe live off the interest and a little bit of the principal. Head over to andrewandtodd.com. They make reverse mortgages easy. They walk you through it. They will take your time, and you can trust them. I trust them. Dwayne trusted them. Everyone in my family trusts them. Done all our loans. andrewandtodd.com. The Dow was up 104 points yesterday, and the S&P was up 29, and the NASDAQ was up 162. That's on the strength of the theory that maybe the Democrats wouldn't be insane after Tuesday night. Wrong. The House is going to pass everything today and send it to the Senate, where it's not going to pass. Maybe the Build Back Better initiative will come back to the House in a different form, but they slapped on a bunch of stuff. A bunch of Democrats are saying, what did you add in here? Nancy Pelosi is saying, everybody, ollie in free, send whatever you want to the Senate. We're going to pass something. Because I need to pass the infrastructure bill, so we do something. That will pass the Senate, and we'll spend an unnecessary $1 trillion. But that will pass. David in Charlotte, North Carolina, 1-800-520-1234. Good morning, David.
Hey, Hugh. Before I start, I love the Salem News app. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But my comment is, if the Democrats thought that CRT was popular, or if they, to put it another way, if they knew it wasn't so unpopular, then they would say, sure, we're doing CRT, and they would own it. But instead, they go, oh, no, we're not doing that. We're just teaching diversity.
Well, there's an inherent contradiction, David, in what they're doing. They're doing two things. It's not taught, and it must be taught. They're saying that at the same time. And it doesn't make any sense to anybody.
Or another way that they're saying it, we're not teaching it, and it's great.
Yeah.
And one other thing, Hugh, I do notice, you talk about the bubble that the politicians live in. I think the media does too, because
Oh, very much.
You used to have some of the corporate folks on your show, and they don't show up anymore. And I think they're just talking to each other. And when people like Yamiche Alcindor ask that question, they're kind of like Pauline Kael said when Nixon got elected. She couldn't believe he won because nobody she knew voted for him.
Yeah, everybody is welcome here. I mean, there are a couple of people who crossed me personally. Everybody is welcome,
I like when you're on because you challenge. I like when you're on because you challenge.
Yeah, I don't think Dr. Fauci's coming back.
Well, that's another subject.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate. He's done 4 interviews with me, and one of them was somewhat tough because I think they've broken the credibility of the CDC. The answer is not to hide. The answer is go back, prepare, and come back with better answers.
Because yours was an actual interview. It wasn't a genuflect in front of, the St. Fauci.
And by the way, part of the beltway problem is people who get genuflected too. And the beltway problem is deep. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm always going to be here. The news you need, the analysis you must have. That's why you ought to download the Salem News Channel app from Google or iTunes and just put it on 24/7 on your Roku and use it on your TV. I'll be right back. America, it's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
He used social media, and they said that they would do whatever it took to make sure that he wasn't able to communicate directly with the people in an unfiltered fashion. And so they said about everything from deplatforming effective conservative voices, censoring the president and other people, creating algorithmic chaos where if you search for information, it would devalue information from right-leaning sources and elevate those on the left. Massive amounts of deplatforming and marginalizing of conservative voices to the tune of, this actually probably had more effect than anything, including propaganda media's malfeasance in the election. But they exerted massive control, and, to think that it still came within 43,000 votes in 3 states, even after all they did, it tells you just how much they did, I think.
So I'm putting you on the spot here. The former president, President Trump's continued statement that the election was, quote, stolen. A, is it a word you would use? B, do you think he should use it?
I don't try to give him advice, but no. I love the word rigged, which is why I named the book Rigged. Before votes even happened, everything was designed to orchestrate a particular outcome, whether that was fake news or censorship, tech control of everything, changing election laws, funding of elections. I think sometimes people just get a little bit too much into the semantics, like call it what you want. We just need to know what happened and whether it should be allowed to happen. But I really like the word rigged, which is why I named the book that.
Yes, it makes sense.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century, but in the wrong hands, kill him. Jump now.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
There's an old brown battered notebook in my office at work. You have to find it, take it, and keep it hidden at all costs. The G20 leaders meeting downtown, they're in danger. In fact, the whole of downtown could be in danger.
If we are to build the superhuman, we must first eliminate those who are flawed.
People are created equally. All of downtown, the high-rises were built on rollers to withstand horizontal shakes. A vertical quake this size could collapse half of downtown.
We have commenced the countdown.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Gallagher Show.
And, you know, I got to share with you a little behind-the-scenes conflict we just had. My producer, of course, is very diligent about dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And today I'm going to have a conversation with Molly Hemingway, who wrote a book called Rigged. She wrote a book detailing the ways that Mark Zuckerberg funded communities that Biden desperately needed. Molly Hemingway is a constant, consistent voice questioning the integrity of the November 2020 election. They'll try to silence that. They'll censor that. They'll shut it down. That's where we are. If you dare question the integrity of the election, they try to cancel you. They censor that view. You're not allowed to do it. You may not do it. But why do Democrats get to do it? Why does Terry McAuliffe get to do it? Why does Stacey Abrams get to do it? Why does Nancy Pelosi get to do it? Why does Hillary Clinton get to do it? Why do Democrats? We know the answer. Because they're fraudulent. These are liars with zero consistency. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. People are marching in the streets and peacefully objecting to mandates, to firing people. And yes, over election integrity.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. On Monday, the Supreme Court heard a case about a Texas law concerning abortion, and in December, they're going to hear arguments in Dobbins. I believe that is going to be the occasion for the reversal of Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood. And I've just written about that for the National Review special issue that is coming out. I'm joined by Valerie Huber, one of the leaders of the pro-life movement in the United States. She is the head of the Institute for Women's Health. She served in the Trump HHS, was one of the leading forces behind the Geneva Consensus Declaration. Valerie, welcome and good morning to you. Thank you for joining me on the Hugh Hewitt Show live this morning.
Well, good morning, Hugh. It's great to be here.
Valerie, would you first tell us about the Institute for Women's Health?
Sure. So the Institute for Women's Health really exists to clear the path so that genuine gains can be made for women's health, particularly in the developing world. What we found is that too many extraneous things like the debate over abortion prevents women from getting the real health care they need. As you know, the women's health narrative has been overtaken by the abortion debate, and we think that shouldn't be so.
Well, that is a great effort to spearhead, and I compliment you on the Institute for Women's Health. What's the website for it, Valerie?
It is theiwh.org.
theiwh.org. Now, I was amazed to find out that there was such a thing called the Geneva Consensus Declaration. I was amazed because I know Alex Azar, I know a bunch of people at HHS, I know Secretary of State Pompeo, I know Ambassador O'Brien, and I didn't know about the Geneva Consensus Declaration. So would you assume our audience is as ignorant as I was until last week and tell us what that was and why it matters?
Well, it does matter, and I'm not surprised if many in your audience are not familiar with it, because it's something that the United States coordinated and was a part of that's outside of the borders of the United States, but it has very real implications for the United States. When I started negotiating on behalf of the U.S. for women's health issues, I found not only that abortion was being brought into these debates in a wrongful manner, but I also saw that nations were being pressured, threatened, and intimidated either into silence or into changing their own laws on these issues by UN agencies or by progressive nations, and that in fact the US government had been complicit in this very sort of behavior in the past. And I fear that it could be happening under the current administration as well. Well, I realized that whether we had 4 years or 8 years, eventually the Trump administration would be gone. And we wanted to have more than just a finger in the ocean that when we left, we wouldn't even know we made any head gains here. And so creating a coalition of nations that supported the family, supported women's health, and supported life, acknowledging that there was no international right to abortion, seemed like an important thing that I was shocked to learn had never been done before. There had never been a coalition of this sort.
Oops, we've lost you there, Valerie. I think maybe your internet dropped. Let's try again. There had never been a coalition of this sort. Then what happened?
So there'd never been a coalition of this sort. I was very surprised that that was the case. So we reached out to countries that could lead the coalition in every region of the world. We negotiated a document called the Geneva Consensus Declaration that made it very clear that women's health needed to be a priority, that extraneous issues should be taken out of that debate, and policies over the protection of life and the family needed to be made by countries, not by international organizations, not by other countries poking its business into the affairs of that nation. It's really a national sovereignty issue surrounding the support of life and family.
Now, there are a number of nations like Poland with its Catholic past that are very pro-life, and there are a number of nations like the United States in places like California and New York where abortion on demand is the policy. What is the international consensus on abortion? Is there one?
There is no international consensus on abortion. So those who are promoting abortion as if it were a human right are creating a narrative as if there is consensus when in fact there isn't. And that's really one of the points of this Geneva Consensus Declaration, and that's to permit countries to make their own laws on this and not to have the jurisprudence internationally or the policies or the advocacy groups internationally force them to change things that are actually contrary not only to their laws, but to who they define themselves as nations based on their cultural and religious foundations.
So the Geneva Consensus Declaration reserves to states the right to make reproductive policy as a sovereign and rejects any attempts to internationalize it. Have I articulated that correctly?
You did a very good job of doing so, yes.
Okay, who signed it and when was it signed, and did the United States sign it?
So the United States did sign it on October 22nd, 2020. At that time, we had 32 countries sign on, representing every region of the world, more than 1.6 billion people. And then before we left the administration, we increased that number to 35 countries. There has only
So, Valerie Hubert, that's huge.
Yeah.
That would actually be significant in international law textbooks. That would be something that the Supreme Court might, in fact, consult in the Dobbins case as evidence that there is no natural right to abortion. I mean, there is that argument out there, and I think it's a bad argument, but one of the things that people point to are international regimes that declare abortion to be a human right. Has the United States withdrawn now, given that we have a hard left pro-abortion absolutism administration in place? Did they immediately tear it up?
Yeah, what was really disappointing to me is that before the sun set on Inauguration Day, all existence of the Geneva Consensus Declaration on U.S. government websites were removed. And what was really surprising about that, Hugh, is a lot of Americans don't even know that the GCD existed. So it wasn't necessarily red meat for their base, but they removed it, I believe, because they knew the power that this coalition could have in preventing their agenda from moving forward as much as they would like it to.
The GCD, again, that's the Geneva Consensus Declaration on Women's Health, which excludes a statement that abortion is part of women's health. Did other nations withdraw after Team Biden came in and began to push the radical agenda of the left again?
Not another nation has withdrawn. In fact, despite the Biden administration's pro-abortion agenda, we've actually seen 2 more countries added to the rolls of the Geneva Consensus Declaration: Guatemala and Russia.
Well, excellent for them because they both respect women's health and they understand that there's a continuum of life. Valerie, what do you think is going to happen on the Texas case, and what do you think is going to happen on Dobbins when it gets to the court?
Well, I think it's any of our guesses. Of course, I know what I hope will happen. I hope that what we stated in the Geneva Consensus Declaration on behalf of all of the world, that life is important through and precious through every stage of life, including before birth. I hope that we have some laws here in the country that protect life as much as some of the other partners that we have around the world defend it.
The Institute for Women's Health, the IWC.com, what's its objective?
Yeah, we're really very genuine in our desire to see these maladies that women are suffering from around the world that we know are curable or preventable, that women actually have the access to the health care and the treatment and the medications and the preventive care that they could and should have, were women's health not sidelined by these other debates.
Now, Valerie Huber, you have been targeted by the Southern Poverty Law Center, as have my friends at the Alliance Defending Freedom, as being an extremist, etc. All the left-wing titles that get attached to serious pro-life advocates. Does that bother you? Does it, in any way sideline you?
It doesn't bother me at all. I know that what we are doing is right. I know that in the long run, if we are successful, there will be millions of women's lives that are either saved or improved as a result of our effort. And that's enough to keep me going every single day.
I hope people visit the IWC.com. By the way, will they find a copy of the Geneva Consensus Declaration there?
They will as soon as our website is finalized. We have a very new organization. We've been working to get this up and running, and it's very, very new. But we have lots of experience behind this organization, even though the organization itself is new. So it's not up yet, but it will be very soon.
You did yeoman's work in the Trump administration on life issues. I wish you every success with the Institute for Women's Health, the IWH. Valerie Huber, nice to talk to you. Thank you for educating me on the Geneva Consensus Declaration. I missed stuff. I missed that entirely. That was happening in October. We had an election going on. That's very unfortunate. Dario in San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Dario.
Hey, how you doing, Hugh?
Good.
Good. Well, first off, I want to say good morning and let's go, Brandon.
No, stop. Hit the delete. I don't do that. But go ahead. I wanted you to just delete him for 6 seconds. I just want the audience to know. I don't do the let's go anyone stuff. All right? I just don't. I am a Christian. And I think people who do that have to consult their faith. Julie in Pensacola, Florida. Hi, Julie.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
What I wanted to say is, of course, everybody knew it was ridiculous when Joe Biden had his campaign speech of Build Back Better because President Trump had already built everything back and our country was great again and going in the right direction. But now his campaign slogan makes a little bit more sense because now the administration is destroying everything that does need to be built back better. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if Trump ran again in 2024 and used the slogan, Build Back Better?
He might. You never know. He might run again. He might grab that slogan, but that's a funny thought, Julie. Thank you in Pensacola, Florida. I got an audience all across the United States. They're all calling in today. 1-800-520-1234. What do you make of the CRT debate? What do you make of Yamiche Alcindor in the White House saying Republicans are lying about it, Republicans are making false claims about it? That's the mainstream media, that's legacy media, that's your tax dollars at work. Yamiche works for you, the Public Broadcasting Corporation. I'm astonished, and she's a friend and a colleague. I just can't believe she did it. I also can't believe some of you are not out there with ReliefFactor.com. This is not PBS. This is commercial-sponsored radio. We have to earn our way in the world, and ReliefFactor.com helps me earn my way in the world because I take it every day, I believe in it, and I get tens of thousands of people to use it every day. And I remind them, don't leave home without it. You'll regret it. If you do, you will be sorry. If you do, you'll have the aches and the pains that you otherwise wouldn't have if you use Icarian and curcumin, resveratrol, and omega to help keep those minor aches and pains away that come with aging or exercise. You're definitely doing the former. You ought to be doing the latter. I'm going to be out and about in Virginia this morning, not the mall. So I encourage all of you to go and get your ReliefFactor.com. Put it in your car if you're a commuter and come right back after the break. 1-800-520-1234. We end where we begin on CRT here on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
The most powerful organs of the state are not merely corrupt, but that they've been weaponized to go after perceived domestic enemies. And that's very scary.
Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power.
We are now all rooting for his success. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
We don't live in the United States of America as any of us would like to understand it.
We have a peaceful transition of power process. That's not what happened.
They interviewed General Flynn, and they did it in what was a complete ambush.
I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
And the audience was, ha, 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 ha. How funny to set up an innocent man.
This is what third world security states do. They spy on their political opponents like this.
This is part of a concerted Russian influence operation.
Russian interference.
They colluded. They were in on it.
He would constantly say, I have seen evidence of collusion.
Until this is released, I can't comment. I can't go into the particulars.
Russians, I'm not going to be specific.
But he knew he could just say it on TV and then hide behind, well, it's all classified, I can't get into it.
Well, it's classified. You can't see it. Collusion. You just got to be willing to see it.
New York's Daily News ran this front page, Trump is Hitler.
How could 62 million Americans vote for Hitler? Are 62 million Americans Nazis?
We really almost thought it was a joke. Like, really, you're not going to accept that you lost this election?
Then they see the Russia collusion narrative sitting right there in front of them and say, why don't we just say that he cheated?
It divided the country in ways that people can't imagine. It's inspired massive violence. It's given people who are bad faith actors a license to do whatever they want because they literally feel like they're fighting Russian spies and Nazis.
Russiagate has been the most egregious abuse of everything that was supposed to have been good about our government.
The thing that they were investigating the Trump campaign for is what they themselves were doing.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Justice is giving to every single man what is their due. There is a yearning for justice in the soul of humanity. And when a regular, normal American earning $55,000 a year, a police officer, a teacher, a firefighter, turns on TV, or they find out that thousands of people are just wanting to waltz into the country, they start to feel as if that's not fair. You don't need an over-explanation for this. The caravan and the subsequent illegal invasion of our...
Trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I want to clear something up for the audience. I dropped a caller accidentally who used, and now I'm going to use the term in order to discuss the term. Let's go, Brandon. I know what it's mean. It's been used on this show twice. Originally, because it was funny that the reporter attempted to say that the crowd was chanting, "Let's go, Brandon," instead of what they were chanting, which was vulgar and repulsive. And I think it is vulgar and repulsive. And so while it was a story about the media, I used it and it was used on the show. It is not a story about the media now. It's an attempt to say a vulgar and repulsive thing that the FCC doesn't allow us to say, nor do I ever say it. I don't use the word. I don't. Nor will I use synonyms for the word. And if I hear my grandkids come off with a "Let's go, Brandon," I'm going to shut it down. And I think the country is coarse, the country is vulgar, and we don't need it. We do not need it. We're citizens, we're fellow citizens, and it's not happening here. So call the show by all means. Not funny to me, not happening here. Joe Manchin with Just on CNN. He talked about critical race theory in schools. Let's hear what he told John Berman.
One of the issues that seemed to play a large role in Virginia was education and parents' role in education, and in some cases, the way that America's history regarding racism has been taught in those schools. Now, you were a former governor. You have dealt with schools directly. Why do you think this was a fertile issue there?
I don't know. I think that basically during the debate, and Terry might have, when he said what he said, and it was just taken and they ran with it, we all know that parents must be involved in children's education. You must be paying attention to what's going on in the classroom, and you must be working with both the school that your children go to, the teachers that they have, and your children at home, if you're involved, and you should be. But with that being said, the curriculum is going to be set if everyone agrees, but if they don't, they should speak out. That's what PTO is about. Parent-teachers organizations are for that reason, and that reason is why they've always been involved. And as far as I can remember in education, when I was governor, I always enjoyed having the input of parents and all that. And then we have to make decisions, and then you have to explain those decisions, right, what you're teaching.
Do you think Democrats are in the wrong place somehow on education right now?
I don't know. No, I don't really. I hope not. I'm not. I can tell you that. I still look to the parents to see what they think their children should be or how they're reacting back home when they get home from school. And social media has played such a part in their life, John. It's not been a good part as far as I can see, but to each his own, I guess, on that.
I want to ask you about a few moments that happened on the Senate floor yesterday, if I can.
All right, that's good enough. They didn't ask the question. Is CRT real? Does it influence the schools systemically? And the answer is yes. Trent in Hermosa Beach, California. Good morning, Trent.
Yes, critical race theory really should not be taught in the schools at all. It is complete bunk, and I've studied it quite a bit. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are already codified into law. So are all of the constructs about race and gender and everything. It's already there. So, and the remedies are well played. But what people want to do is to make it better. We want to have a better country, and the remedies are really old school. They really are. They're the rebirthing America. It should be about cultural norms and morality, reason, and logic, and the adherence to productive activities. And critical race theory is not a productive activity. It goes to mind shaping. It goes to people's cognitive mapping. It teaches mental portraits that are jaded and not constructive. And what we need is more study of humanity, the science of humanity, which is liberation and enlightenment.
Trent, good speech. Here's what I think we need. I think we need reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think we need tests. I think we need skills. I think we need STEM. I don't think we need race consciousness. But thank you. Tim in Florida. Hey, Tim, you're on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hey, Hugh, love the show. I just wanted to say, mainstream media, no one believes anything that they say anymore. They've lost all credibility. But they understand that they have proprietary listeners, and that's who they're speaking to, although those numbers are dwindling every single day.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're doubling down on a smaller percentage of the American public every single day. It's unfortunate. Jim in Ohio. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the mainstream truthful media. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Hey, Jim.
Hey, you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to say something, and then I'm going to hang up about critical race theory. You know, I just look at it this way. Nobody's fingerprints are the same. Nobody's facial prints are the same. Nobody's DNA is the same. Nobody's eye prints are the same. And nobody's has the exact same skin color. I believe God made one race, and that's the human race. And there's good and evil. But pride, ego, lust, jealousy, and greed in the world. You know, we have to learn to start thinking about today and leave the past where it belongs. We're not going to forget it. But live in today and try to make this place a better place.
Nicely said, Jim. I appreciate it. That's perfectly said. Good way to end. Hey, America, listen, I am serious about the collapse of media. Go get the Salem News Channel app. Get Roku for your TV or get a Roku-enabled TV set and just call up the Salem News Channel. Download it, watch it on your iPad. It's just time to leave the legacy media behind. They can't deal with what Virginia dealt. They can't report it. They don't want to understand it. They deny it. That's not a problem of the Virginia voter. That's a problem of the legacy media. That's why I'll be here tomorrow for 3 hours live from the Beltway on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.